as we talk about our action plan for the coming work ahead. We know, and we talked yesterday a lot about the coming challenges, especially with the new US administration, and how we are going to come together not only as different organizations, but really as a movement in solidarity with Cuba to push forward our fight back and Cuba's fight back against these repressive measures. So thank you so much again for being with us. To kick off this morning, we're very honored to have with us Manolo de los Santos, the director of the People's Forum. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome up our compañero Manolo.
Good morning, comrades. It's a wonderful pleasure to welcome you all to the People's Forum. For us, it's an honor to be able to host this session of the US-Cuba Normalization Conference. We, since our founding in 2018, have always felt that struggling in solidarity with Cuba was an equal and urgently necessary component to everything we do. Whether we're fighting on the streets for Palestine, whether we're working with labor, working with young people, working with farmers, working with ordinary people across the country, we can't not talk about Cuba. Not just because it is a historical reference about how society could be organized differently, but for us, most importantly, because it's a reference about how to organize for revolution. That is what we're interested at in the People's Forum. So to continue to have this action-focused conversation today, it's an honor for us to host that. And we hope that this day is useful to you and that we come out of here with plans of so many things to do in common. So again, welcome to the People's Forum. So good to have you here.
Y de la delegación, permiso, uno momentico. Okay. Just confirming my translation and everything. So we're very honored to have with us a delegation of amazing Venezuelan women who have been in New York City participating in the United Nations conference. One of their representatives is going to be addressing us this morning. We're very honored to have Asia Villegas, who is a deputy to the Venezuelan National Assembly. She was with us yesterday in conference, and we're so honored to have her here with us today. And she's going to be translated by Jill. So please give them both a warm welcome to the stage.
Chávez vive. Muy buenos días a todos y a todas. Agradecida profundamente de esta invitación y quisiera que supieran que mi presencia aquí es la expresión de las mujeres venezolanas, del pueblo venezolano. Me acompaña también Nancy García, también del Movimiento de Mujeres. Me acompaña Laura Franco, también del Movimiento de Mujeres, la compañera Camiladies, como ven es un nombre complejo, Camiladies, también de esas lideresas jóvenes y por supuesto Carla Murillo. Agradecida para ellas que nos acompañan también y nos ponen en este privilegio de hablar.
A very good morning to each and every one of you. I want you to know that we are here as an expression of solidarity and support from the Venezuelan people. And it is a pleasure for me to be here with you with my compañeras from Venezuela, Nancy Garcia, Laura Franco, Carmiledis, Carla Muñito of the Women's Movement of Venezuela.
Estos días le he visto el rostro, el rostro bueno del pueblo bueno norteamericano. Y
During these few days, I've seen the good face of the American people.
quiero agradecer profundamente a todo el activismo que ustedes hacen por Cuba, por Palestina y por nuestro pueblo, el pueblo venezolano.
And I want to express to you how deeply grateful I am for all of the solidarity that you are showing for the people of Cuba, for the people of Palestine, and for my people, the people of Venezuela.
Si ustedes comprendieran lo emocionante, lo impactante que significa para nosotras, para nosotros como pueblo, la fuerza y la solidaridad del pueblo norteamericano. Si ustedes supieran lo remoralizador que significa verlos a ustedes en la propia sociedad norteamericana, cuna del imperio, a otra cuna, una cuna hermosa que acoge a sus mejores hijos y a sus mejores hijas.
I can't tell you how moving it is to be up here and see all of you here in solidarity, here right in the belly of the beast, in the birthplace of imperialism, where we come to you from the birthplace of Chavismo, and it is so moving for us to see all of you here in solidarity.
Venezuela ha venido en medio de grandes dificultades ejerciendo el derecho inalienable de los pueblos a la soberanía y a la autodeterminación.
Venezuela has come here has been working on realizing what is the right of all peoples, the right to sovereignty and self-determination.
Y ese ejercicio de independencia, de soberanía, nos ha costado como pueblo las medidas coercitivas laterales, más de 1 millar de medidas coercitivas laterales, mal llamadas sanciones.
And this exercise of our independence has come at a high price. The price has been over 1,000 unilateral coercive measures, which are ill-named sanctions.
Quiero decirles que esas medidas coercitivas laterales han producido sufrimiento al pueblo venezolano, pero de manera especialísima, de manera diferenciada al pueblo mujer. El inicio, a partir del 2015, de esa sentencia que nos declaraba amenaza inusual y extraordinaria, acabó inclusive con la vida de muchas mujeres y de muchos niños y de muchas niñas. Sin embargo, nuestro pueblo ha resistido.
And I want to tell you that these unilateral coercive measures cause tremendous suffering. Since Venezuela was declared an extraordinary and unusual threat to the United States in 2015, this has caused the deaths of many, many women and children in Venezuela.
Mientras más acción imperial de coacción, de bloqueo financiero, mayor es nuestra resistencia.
So the stronger the coercion and the financial blockade and attacks, the stronger our resistance becomes.
Nuestro modelo de democracia protagónica y participativa consolida la participación popular a lo largo de 25 años y de 30 procesos electorales que legitima la decisión popular y soberana de construir una sociedad socialista, una sociedad de iguales.
And over these 25 years, we have been consolidating our active and participatory democracy, and this has included 30 electoral processes. And today and this year we are taking this even further.
El presidente Nicolás Maduro Moros, el día 8 de marzo, decía que ante la arremetida imperial, fascista y neofascista que surge, hay en nuestro país una respuesta contundente: más democracia, más derechos.
And on March 8th, our president, Nicolás Maduro, said that in light of the fascist and neo-fascist onslaught, the response of our people has been more and better democracy.
Ayer
Yesterday,
nosotros y nosotras tuvimos un proceso electoral, perdón, excuse me, a lo largo del 2025 habrán 10 procesos electorales.
over the course of 2025, there will be 10 elections.
El 2 de febrero las comunidades decidieron en más de 5.000 circuitos comunales y comunas, que es la base del poder popular, decidieron proyectos para la solución de problemas cotidianos en nuestro territorio.
Ese fue el 5 de febrero?
El 2 de febrero.
On February 2nd, we had more than 5,000 communes hold elections to decide how government projects would be funded.
El venidero mes de abril habrá un proceso electoral para elegir 24 gobernaciones, 335 alcaldías, 24 consejos legislativos, 335 consejos municipales.
Next month in April, there will be elections for 24 governors, 305 mayors, 24 legislative councils, and 335 municipal councils.
Y nuestro pueblo ayer decide las postulaciones.
And yesterday, our people decided who the candidates would be.
No son cúpulas políticas encerrados y encerradas.
It's not something that takes place behind closed doors where just the top leaders of the parties decide who the candidates are.
No son las oligarquías burguesas.
And it's not the bourgeois oligarchy who decides.
Son las comunidades organizadas postulando candidatos y candidatas. Más de 10.000 hombres fueron postulados, más de 8.000 mujeres fueron postuladas.
It is rather our people who are deciding who the candidates will be. More than 10 men were candidates, more than 8,000 women.
Para más de 1.200 cargos de elección popular.
For more than 1,200 people's democracy positions.
Esto es más democracia.
And that's what more democracy looks like.
Y con agendas por derechos humanos fundamentales para nuestro pueblo.
And based on the fundamental human rights agenda for our people.
Al lado de un dirigente o una dirigente nacional de reconocida trayectoria, también habían candidatos y candidatas de nuestro pueblo, vecinos, vecinas de nuestras comunidades postulándose sin distingo, sin avales que no fuera más que la legitimidad del pueblo.
And so alongside people who had long history as political leaders, we had people coming up from the grassroots who became candidates, all to work for our people.
Para nosotros y nosotras esto es inédito.
And that is without precedent in our country.
Bueno, sería muy largo y no tenemos más tiempo pero
I'm
queremos,
sorry I don't have time to go on too much
pero
longer,
para nosotras y nosotros es muy emocionante.
but we really are very moved by all of this.
Quisiera cerrar con dos cosas muy importantes para nosotros y nosotras.
And I'd just like to close with two very important things to all of us.
Nuestro infinito agradecimiento al pueblo cubano
Our infinite gratitude to the people of Cuba,
que ha acompañado a la revolución bolivariana
who have accompanied the Bolivarian Revolution.
desde la misión Barrio Adentro,
From the Barrio Adentro mission of doctors
que llevó a los rincones de nuestros barrios, nuestras comunidades, a médicos y a médicas cubanas,
who brought Cuban doctors to every corner of our neighborhoods,
que formaron a más de 30.000 médicos y médicas integrales comunitarios,
and who also trained more than 30,000 community doctors,
que nos ayudaron en el proceso de alfabetización,
and who also helped us with the literacy process,
que nos ayudaron a consolidar también las misiones educativas.
and who also helped us consolidate educational missions.
Quisiéramos agradecerle porque en medio de un férreo bloqueo, ellos no nos daban lo que les sobraba, compartieron con nosotros lo que tenían.
And in the midst of the terrible blockade, they didn't just give us what was left over, rather they shared with us what little they had.
Por lo tanto, Por lo tanto, estos 65 años de bloqueo férreo, inhumal, criminal,
So this 65 years of fierce criminal blockade
cuenta con nuestra absoluta solidaridad
will be resisted with our absolute solidarity.
y sería incuantificable el agradecimiento eterno que le tenemos al pueblo y al gobierno cubano.
And it is impossible to quantify the eternal gratitude that we have for the Cuban people and their government.
Hay una hermosa frase de Martí que repetía mucho nuestro comandante eterno Hugo Chávez.
There's a beautiful phrase from Martí that our eternal comandante Hugo Chávez liked to recite.
En América, Bolívar todavía tiene mucho que hacer.
Bolívar still has a lot to do in the Americas.
Así que gracias a todos y a todas.
Thank you, everyone.
Queremos cerrar invitándolos a todos y a todas a visitar nuestra ciudad de Caracas, a visitar al pueblo venezolano, vivir la experiencia histórica que se desarrolla en nuestro pueblo, donde las mujeres han tenido un rol de vanguardia en la resistencia y en la victoria de poder alcanzar hoy, después de tal nivel de acoso y de agresión, podemos nosotras decir que somos victoriosas. Que viva Chávez, que viva el presidente Nicolás Maduro Moros.
I want to invite all of you to come to visit Caracas, to visit the Venezuelan people, to witness firsthand this historic moment that we are living in which democracy is becoming stronger. And thank you again, and long live Hugo Chavez and the Bolivarian Revolution.
Gracias. Muchas gracias por la traducción. Disculpa que te...
Thank you. Thank you to our dear sister, and welcome to the delegation. Okay, now I'm going to introduce, we're going to start the program proper with John Waller, who's going to tell us some of the ground rules, and then Tamara and I will try to navigate.
Okay, my name is John Waller. 21 years ago, I was this man from the British Cuba Solidarity Campaign was invited by the Reverend Lucius Walker to come to the US to organize the Pastors of Peace caravans to Cuba. 15 years I did that. I'm now one of the organizers of this conference. I'm the treasurer of the National Network on Cuba and member of the End the Blockade of Cuba Committee in Portland, Oregon, where I live. The session today is going to be focused on a draft action plan, although I would prefer to really call it a strategy document. Tamara and I are going to chair it once I've finished. We're not going to have an unstructured discussion about it. We're going to have it focused in structured ways, firstly about the general discussion of the document, but then section by section. But that's their job, to manage that. I've got to talk about the action plan. Now, to be honest, I rarely attend conferences like this. All too often, there's a long 20, 30 page document of to-dos, like this, not quite, a bit longer than this. These are available on the table over there if you haven't got one. And at home, I get it emailed and I read it and then I file it away in my electronic filing cabinet and I maybe note one or two things that change my practice. I don't want this to be like that. I want this to be real discussion because we are entering a new era, not just Trump. Trump 2 is going to be more than Trump 1. He's already done everything he did in Trump 1. And the economic blockade of Cuba is becoming an economic war against Cuba, an attempt to starve the Cuban people into submission, as it's always been ultimately the blockade. There's more to come. He hasn't yet moved on travel to Cuba, but that's coming. He's going to change the OFAC regulations on travel. There's only rumors coming out so far of what he'll do. But it may well be that he's going to almost eliminate the opportunities for people like us to travel to Cuba. I hope not, but I fear that's what's going to happen. The fact that he hasn't moved so far is because they're debating internally what they're going to do about Cuban American travel. They daren't stop all Cuban American travel to Cuba. That would create uproar in Miami. They probably will limit it in various ways. But they're still debating that. That's why there's no announcements yet about OFAC and travel regulations. But rumours out yesterday, literally yesterday, that in their measures to stop travel from other countries to the US, they're going to have 10 countries, including Cuba, where no visas will be issued to come to the US. Cubans will not be able to travel to the US. That, I think, is highly likely to happen. But I'm sure that's going to cause consternation in Miami. And what about all the hundreds of thousands of Cubans who've come in recent years, forced by the draconian sanctions on their country? They are not yet residents, let alone citizens. Is Trump going to deport them? Maybe, maybe not. And if he does, where will he deport them to? To Cuba or to Guantanamo Bay? This, whatever he does, is going to cause a reaction in Miami. So I want to talk about Cuban Americans, and this is where I come onto this draft agenda, draft action plan, because at the forefront of it is Cuban Americans. So often the people we see as the enemy, the gusanos, the haters, and of course many of them are, but many of them are not. Many of them want to help their families, want to see an end to the blockade. We need to be reaching out to them as Trump takes measures that damage them and their families, because that's what he's going to do. And we need to think hard about how we do it. If we talk the language to them of revolution, they're not going to listen. If we talk the language of anti-imperialism to them, they're not going to listen. But if we talk the language of militant opposition to the blockade, we have the potential for a dialogue. That, I think, is going to be fundamental in the coming months. And I hope later on, whether there's Cuban Americans here or online, people from Miami, from the Action Committee there, you will talk more about that point. I think it's the most important point in this document. Travel to Cuba. We've made great strides in recent years in sending brigades and delegations to Cuba. You heard about some of them yesterday. There's really exciting what's coming for May 1st. If we can, if we're allowed, we need to do even more of it. But also, we need to think about travel in general. We need to find ways to encourage people from the US of all kinds, for whatever reason, to go to Cuba, because that breaks the economic blockade, it breaks the information blockade. We didn't get a chance to show it, but Mary Ann Sara from the Massachusetts Peace Action Committee, working with comrades from the Publications Department of ICAP, has produced a very good PowerPoint explaining all the ways you can travel to Cuba. We'll make sure that that gets circulated for your use in your local committees. But if Trump does his worst, we may need to be moving on to think about how we campaign for our right to travel to Cuba. We may need to be thinking once again the lessons of IFCO Passes the Peace and the Venceremos Brigade about travel challenges to Cuba through another country. And we may need to be thinking about how we can encourage Cuban Americans, particularly the younger generation, the young people who've perhaps never been to Cuba, have just heard about it from their grandparents and their parents, to get them to go to Cuba on study tours, on cultural tours, and to go with open minds. So that's travel. Material aid. We heard yesterday from Bob Schwartz of Global Health Partners, he's here, about the dire state of Cuban hospitals. Shortages, massive shortages of everything. Bob announced yesterday that the Saving Lives campaign is going to be relaunched. You'll get an email about it in the coming days, with two objectives. One, to raise money to send more heart pacemakers to Cuba. Secondly, to build on the campaigns initiated in Los Angeles to collect and send hundreds of thousands of analgesics, painkillers. So that's coming. We need to strengthen our material aid work. It's crucial for Cuba. I think it's also crucial for our own movement. 3 years ago, if I'd have been standing on the platform, I'd have had to say that our movement is almost overwhelmingly people of my age and older. In the last 3 years, we've made important strides to change that. Through the delegations, through the brigades, young people coming into our movement, at local level, forming new committees, at the national level, in the leadership of the NNOC, for instance. That's continuing, but it needs to be built upon. I hope that all the organisers of the brigade, some of them are here right now, it's important, it's crucial that you are telling your brigadistas, get involved, create new committees where they don't exist, join the existing ones. But I also think it's important that those of us who've been in the historic leadership are prepared to let go, not to give up, but to let go, to share the leadership. Ike yesterday went through a list of comrades who have died in the last year. He might have gone through a list, there's a couple of them, of committees that have died in the last year. If we don't let go and let young people take leadership roles, there'll be more committees dying. So that's local groups. As Manolo was talking about, there's going to be all kinds of struggles starting to erupt and erupting in opposition to Trump. Many of those struggles, whether it be for better healthcare, reproductive rights, against climate change, against the genocide in Palestine, many of those struggles have a lot to learn from Cuba. We need to be there, letting them know about that. But also Cuba needs them to be participating in solidarity with Cuba. And that requires dialogue. And so I'm going to say something about street action. There's a point in the document about street action. It was 4 years ago that it was a Cuban American, Carlos Lazo, who led us out of our COVID-inspired Zoom webinar backwater into street actions, regular monthly street actions around the US, around Canada. In the US, they've largely stopped. I think in Canada, including in Vancouver, they're still going. Should we resume them? Or should we, as I personally think, focus on taking through the streets our messages into the much larger protests that are happening around all the other struggles? I think personally that's the way forward, but we can debate that. Advocacy. We have a trifecta: Republican president, Congress, administration. Nothing positive is going to be passed in Congress about Cuba in the next 4 years. That said, Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon has once again introduced a bill that, in its legal language, dismantles the blockade. It's an amazing bill in its content, in its intent. It's not going to pass, it's not going to get voted upon, but it's something we can use in our propaganda. It's something we can use when we approach our representatives, our senators throughout the country, and say, sign on to this bill, show there's opposition to the blockade of Cuba. But for the moment, actually, we're going to have to play defensive. You may have picked up, as you came in, a sheet from a SERI. It's a fact sheet about HR 450, the Force Act. This is an act introduced within the Congress, to be introduced in the Congress, which would basically make Cuba's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism law. Not even Trump could change it if he wants to. We need to oppose that. I hope later on, when we get to contributions from online, Claire Bletchman from DSA will talk about the campaign that they've started, and others will be joining in on to oppose the Force Act. That's the immediate task. And then we have resolutions. Another document that you may have picked up, US-Cuba resolutions. 117 resolutions and growing have been passed in the US against the blockade or against the SSOT. Most of the major cities in the US, many labor organizations. We need to expand that, but perhaps more importantly, we need to make use of this list. This list represents elected representatives of maybe 60 million people. How do we bring that voice, the people say, of 60 million people to the corridors of power? That's what we need to think about creatively. Again, there are people online I know are going to talk about that later on when we get to that. And finally, media. We all heard from Keith Bollander yesterday about how the media will never be a friend of Cuba, the mass media. Sam Anderson corrected him a little bit. He said, there is a media friendly to Cuba, the black media. We need to take more account of that and use of that. But also we know we have to make use of social media, despite the ownership of Elon Musk and the other barons of IT. We need to take advantage of that. A year ago, I was in a workshop from Angie over there. I told her I'd point her out. Young comrades showing people like me how to use social media. Great. Well, my challenge to the likes of Angie is you told us how, even with small numbers, if we get our message in first, we can have an impact. That needs to be organized. We need Angie's and others to organize that so that others, young people with skills in social media, are producing the content, but you're enabling us to get it disseminated as widely as possible, as quickly as possible. I'm going to end there. Let's have some good discussion. Let's not try and turn this into a line by line, change this wording, add this wording. There may be some of that that's appropriate, but let's think strategically. Thank you.
I forgot to do this before, but I wanted to thank Manolo and the People's Forum again for hosting us and giving us this welcome. Cuba, C, New York, New Jersey, we go back with having our meetings here. When the People's Forum first opened, they always were a platform for anti-blockade and solidarity actions, and we'll always be grateful for that. And Angie also introduced me to the QR code, so that's another.
All right. Beautiful shout outs for Angie this morning. And you know, these are the things that we're really, this draft action plan, you'll notice, is really about thinking more again about our future work over the next few years and how and where we want to prioritize. And I think everybody got a copy of this document. I did go around and offer them to folks. This is where we kind of want to organize our conversation today and thinking about, somehow I've moved this and it's not happy now, sorry. Okay. Okay. So we want this to just be kind of a central part of our discussion, but not everything necessarily. And we want to open the floor for folks. Also, if you have other ideas around campaigns, suggestions, everything down to, you know, some very detailed things, maybe like organizing workshops around using tools, you know, we've talked before about, you know, Instagram or TikTok or things around, you know, Canva and other tools that are at our disposal for trying to, you know, make our work aesthetically pleasing and also interesting to new audiences and reaching out to new folks. But also thinking about the bigger issues of how we integrate our work into the different struggles that are taking place today, and how we bring Cuba to more people, and how we bring this work to end the blockade, to build that pressure on the US government so that they have to listen to us and they have to take action. So we wanted to open the floor for conversation. We do also have folks participating in Zoom online who will also be able to bring up as well and into the conversation. And we want this document to kind of be a source of conversation. We have a few people who are interested in talking, for example, on the issue of Cuban Americans and other issues. So we'll bring them into the conversation as we go. But we wanted to just start with opening the floor for some general overall perspectives or discussions, and then we'll go into some specific topics. So I'm just going to read those to you. One moment. Yeah. So we are, as I mentioned, going to start off with kind of general discussion, and then we want to discuss the topic of integrating more Cuban American voices into our work. We also want to talk about travel, building local groups and material aid, what kind of support and issues and campaigns local groups are taking on, and if there's invitations to get involved in those, engaging with other struggles and street actions, advocacy and resolutions, media and social media, international links, and any other points that folks want to bring to the table, to the conversation. We also are looking forward to hearing from our North American desk chair of the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples, Leima Martinez, who's here with us this morning, along with Noemi, the first vice president of ICAP, and who are listening to this conversation and are also going to be contributing as we wrap up in the afternoon. So the floor is open. Oh, you want to talk about time and laws?
Just
Yes.
in the interest of facilitating discussion, just a couple of ground rules. One is which people should online and here try to limit their questions or statements or contribution, all of which is welcome and uncensored, to 5 minutes, please. And we're going to call on people to speak a second time only after everybody that's had a chance to speak once can speak. And this first section, we'll call on people, and please try to stay within the limits. And do we have the time things that I can harass people with if they go over? Anyway, we will have those. So I guess we're opening it up. Okay. You know. Come on up, sister. Introduce yourself. And then Jason. You can come up here.
Okay, so everyone needs to come to the front to talk.
Yeah.
You want them, that way you're on the.
Come on down.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Asantua Nkrumah Toure. My pronouns are she, her, co-conspirator. I'm an organizer with Black Alliance for Peace and the Green Party of Philadelphia. I just want to say I agree with all the suggestions made about how we reach out to people, bring more young people into this movement. But I just want to offer a word of caution. As an example, in 2021, we had a situation in Philadelphia where, the protests were going on in Philadelphia. And for those of us who have been a long-time members of Cuba Solidarity Movement, we knew to do our research. So I was having a discussion with some comrades in our Philadelphia for Palestine coalition. We were discussing Cuba, and some of the comrades says, oh, I came across these Afro-Cubans, and they have something to say about racism in Cuba. And I said, okay, well, what are their names? And they gave the names. I did a quick research, Google check. They were all Gusanos. They were all Gusanos. Young sister out of Toronto who was Black Lives Matter in Toronto. Young brother named Rohan something who was somehow connected to the University of Pennsylvania and other questionable nonprofits. So all I'm saying here is, good idea, comrade. We must bring in more young people. We must bring in more Cuban Americans, but we need to have some type of fair way of vetting people, right? Because every Afro-Cuban ain't down with the Cuban Revolution. And those that I took the time to research only took me 3 minutes. They were all Gusanos. I went to their Twitter. I went to their Facebook page. It was all in Spanish. I did the translation to English, and I found out they were all Gusanos. So how do we do this in a way that's fair and really pushes our movement forward? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Assistant Santua. On that point quickly, one such Gusano who frequently travels from Miami to New York to vandalize a mural, the Dos Alas mural on 105th Street and 3rd Avenue in East Harlem. He's pretty active. He hasn't been active over the last year as far as vandalizing the mural. This is the longest period that he's been away from the mural. But he's involved in the fight against police brutality, liberation of the Congolese people, Sudanese, etc. He sounds very progressive, but he despises the Cuban Revolution. He despises Che Guevara, etc. So let us, just be mindful, of individuals like that. And he's a person of color, by the way. So yeah, exactly. So thank you for that point. Yeah, going forward, just one general suggestion, certainly. It reminds me of something Kenya Serrano, former head of the North American division of ICAP, whom I initially had the pleasure of meeting back in 1995 when I invited her to my high school. Back in 2015, when she was in New York, she had a discussion with people, including some youth, regarding what is necessary to build as broad as possible a movement for social justice here in the U.S. And she looked around and gave just one word answer. She said, unity. The room got silent. Not because there was any disagreement, but for the exact opposite reason. So in the spirit of that answer, in the spirit of unity, let us make sure that regardless as to what disagreements we in this room may have on one issue or another, we keep our focus on ending the embargo against Cuba, taking Cuba off the list, normalizing relations in a way that respects Cuba's sovereignty, the return of Guantanamo, all of Guantanamo, to Cuba. That should be our focus, not any disagreement on one issue or another, regardless as to what it is, including Palestine, Israel, or anything else. In the spirit of that unity, let us move forward with an action plan. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I've got Luis here in the room, and then we're going to start. Oh, and I've got 3 people in the room here, and then we're going to go on to Cuban Americans, and I see that Pete Seidman is with us online, and he wanted to speak to that issue, I know. So we'll take 3 more people in the room, and then we'll go online.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to.
Could you identify?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just said that. Everybody that comes up, please identify your name and organization. Thank you.
My name is Luis. I'm a member of the Brazilian Communist Party. I'm here on a different mission, actually, and I just ended up happened to be in town, so decided to come. I just want to say something about unity. Very important stuff, something that the Cubans have reminded us many, many times when we are in Cuba and when they come to our countries, that, the revolution was not made by one party and one group only. It was a coalition of people who were trying to get a better world for their own peoples. But something about that unity is that it cannot come with depoliticization. We cannot depoliticize our movements to accept more people into it. We need to create that unity by bringing that politicization to other people who are not maybe as politicized as all of us here definitely are. Creating unity among ourselves is the first step, right? We are people who have very strong politics, have our disagreements. Creating that unity is very important, but we cannot depoliticize the broader movement whenever we go out there to talk to other people. That depolitization has had horrible effects in Brazil. If anyone here has read that book by the same guy from Jakarta Method, can't remember the name right now, that someone was talking about to me yesterday. 2013 in Brazil was a depoliticized movement. It was a mass movement, and we're going to see that with Trump. We're going to see a lot of different peoples coming together against those policies. Progressive movements who sometimes are not as progressive as we think they are. They might have a lot of fronts where they work with us, a lot of fronts where they want to be there, but we cannot depoliticize all those movements. We have to be talking about how all of those things come back to class struggle, how all those things come back to these different anti-imperial struggles, because when we left that behind in Brazil, for the sake of unity, when we left that behind, those ones are co-opted. And the people who are against us have a lot more money than we have. They have a lot more means than we have. They have a lot more media than we have. And they can easily cop people who come to movements depoliticized. I'm not the one saying this. This is Walter Benjamin back in the 30s talking about depoliticized politics and how depoliticized politics creates depoliticized people. And that's a breeding ground for fascism. If you're revolting and you don't have anything to revolt against, if you know that you're suffering, you know that things are bad, but you don't really know what's the cause of that, that revolt can be instrumentalized in many ways. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you, folks, for keeping yourselves in time. I've got 2 people in the room here, then I'm going to Pete, and then I'll come to both of you. Okay. All right. Come on down in the pink shirt, please. Sorry, I don't know everybody's names.
Good afternoon, I'm Susan Metz, and I represent the International Playback Theater Network. As you see, we are an international cultural movement. Playback theater is now in more than 70 countries, and these are our slogans. A healthy culture for the beloved community, in Spanish. Una cultura sana por la comunidad afectiva. And we are now struggling for a center for playback theater in Cuba. And we're getting close. And we're not a political movement, we're a cultural movement. We ask people, we train very rigorously to work in a team of artists. And we ask a member of the audience to come and tell a story from your life. And the teller will choose from among the artists who are going to play the roles of different people in that story, including animals, including forces of nature. We train very rigorously. We have a very high level of ethics. We're in more than 70 countries. And I have been teaching playback theater in Cuba for the last 23 years. And what an experience and what a pleasure and what an opportunity it has been for me to go back and forth and spend my winters there acting out people's stories. So we have a project now. We're trying to build for funding from UNESCO because our patron in Cuba is Sociedad Cultural José Martí, which is the branch of UNESCO, of the UN in Cuba. And we have a site in Cienfuegos, in the center of the country, in the foothills of the Escambray Mountains, ready to be our center for playback theater, where we can invite people to come and study playback and play with us. And we are, come and ask me and I'll give you the more information about it. We have stuff on YouTube. We have a lot of stuff on the internet about playback theater. Please go and look at it and help us to get the grant from UNESCO. If we get $15 from UNESCO, we'll get all we've already gotten contacts with Norway. We're in contact with Switzerland. If we can get that grant, so that's a different kind of way of reaching out. We teach empathy. This is not a political movement. It's a cultural movement. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. In the red shirt here.
Hi, I'm Andrew. My national organization is the Struggle for Socialism Party, and my home organization is the People's Power Assembly in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm out here from Baltimore. I wanted to mention I was part of the group that made it happen, passed a city council resolution against the blockade, which took about a year. It started in 2020 in COVID. Thank you. And actually, I wanted to say, because I think street mobilization as part of this action plan is very important. Actually, bringing the issues to the community, I think, is part of that. actually pushed our city council resolution forward was raising specific issues. Especially during the time of COVID, Cuba had vaccines. And that was something that resonated with the city council members, but also the people in the city that we were talking to. We were not just raising these issues to the city council members themselves, but to people in their districts, things like that. One of the key issues was actually the diabetes medicine. Baltimore City, as you can imagine, is an oppressed city. It is rife with food deserts, and as a result, it's a high diabetes city. Most of the council members, most of the people that we talked to had no idea there was this medicine available in Cuba. So I raise this because raising things like why can't we have what Cuba has is really it allows people to think about, well, why does this system allow this? Why does this system allow this? And why should I support a system that guarantees fundamental human rights? Thank you. So just bringing issues to the community as much as we can. And as your organization is growing, maybe not on the issue of Cuba, for example, then teaching them about Cuba, having special educationals and issue-based political education. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do have 4 people with their hands up online and 3 people in the room. I've got 1, 2, and then 3 over here. So we're going to go to the folks that are online. It seems we're kind of in our general discussion, and again, we're going to kind of try and break down to kind of more specifics as we go, but I mean, people are presenting lots of interesting projects and ideas, so I think we'll just keep going along this train for now. So first I've got Pete, and then Frank, and then Mark, and then Joseph. If you can try to introduce yourselves first and keep it to 3 minutes or less. We'll go to Pete first.
You're muted, Pete.
Pete, please unmute yourself. Oh, apparently you can't unmute yourself.
Well, I did. Did I just do that? Oh, no.
There we go, Pete. Try again.
Good morning.
No,
or
we're
afternoon.
still not hearing you, unfortunately. One moment.
How about now?
Yes, perfect, Pete.
Okay, that was my fault. Sorry. So, good morning. I'm going to report on some of our experiences here in Miami. I believe that Nesbitt Crutchfield is also in person up there, and he can also share. People have more questions. Bipartisan Washington says that its policies towards Cuba, the cruel blockade, are in response to the poor suffering Cubans in Miami who had to flee communist tyranny. We know that this is a lie. I doubt that Lester Mallory ever spoke to a Miami Cuban in his whole life. The policies that Washington uses derive from the interests of the United States government and its imperialist perspectives towards the people of the Americas, and Cuba's example, which shows them a way forward. The fact is that the Miami Cubans are divided in many ways. Little Havana and Hialeah, the 2 centers of the population, are poverty zones. They have the highest rates of COVID. And there are many other examples that I could give that I won't. But they have a sense of the Cuban family and how the blockade hurts their ability to help their families, just like other immigrants want to do, to send money, to travel, to visit, and so forth. And it's very important that we think about, the way I think about it strategically is, what would be the impact if there were hundreds of Miami Cubans going through the streets of Miami wearing the same T-shirts that the Jewish Voice for Peace wears, not in my name. This is a realistic strategic perspective that would have a big impact on the lies of the US government as to why it does this policy. And it could begin to be an unraveling of that policy. I put in the chat a poll conducted by Florida International University, which is a bastion of academic imperialism, which goes over some of these divisions and shows how some 40% of the Cubans in Miami say they're against, well, in the poll, they say embargo, we say blockade, but it indicates the scope of disagreement on these policies. And it was even higher during the time of the Obama administration when that was somewhat legitimized. It's very important to realize that the two leaders, Jorge Medina and Carlos Lazo, who revitalized our whole movement, I think it's fair to say, during the 3 years of the monthly caravans at the end of the month, both of them were people who left Cuba during the special period. Both of them did time in Cuban jails. And then they came to America and they got schooled in Uncle Sam University to have a different perspective on the condition of their people and the cause of the problems in Cuba. When they started those caravans, Max Lesnick, who has been a leader of the Cuban community here since the 1960s, he helped to lead a process of coming to grips with this, a caravan against the blockade that was not led by revolutionaries. What should we do? And he came to the conclusion, as did our coalition through a lot of hard discussions, that unity and action against the blockade, regardless of people's positions on the revolution, was the way forward in Miami. And some people may say, well, that only applies to Miami. And I would argue, no, if you think about the real level of the class struggle right now and the people we're trying to reach out to. Max said, the way he looked at it, which was a Jose Marti kind of way of looking at it, is to unite the patriotic emigration, which is a substantial part of Cubans in the United States in action against the blockade. John said that the language of revolution will leave us unable to connect with what lies ahead as we think about the measures Trump is taking and the disagreements that are going to develop within the Cuban community about it. I prefer to say that the language of revolution is very helpful to us thinking about a strategy that will, in action, in real life, build a movement that can have an impact in the class struggle to change US foreign policy. The words that we use for revolution and for Marxism are very scientific and precise, but they're only going to be empty if we don't convert them into meaningful action in the class struggle, which is what Cuba needs. It needs an end to the blockade for the prospects for this revolution to flower in the way it can. So I hope that sheds some light on the discussion here on strategy based on the experiences in Miami.
Thank you, Pete. We're going next to, I believe, was it Frank? Oh, Joe? Okay, we're going next to Joe Callahan. If you can unmute yourself, Joe.
Okay, I think I've got it unmuted now. I wanted to talk about reaching out to other struggles. The action plan.
Sorry,
website.
if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself first.
I'm sorry.
From? Yeah.
Joe Callahan from Minneapolis, Solidarity Committee on the Americas, and Minnesota-Cuba Committee. And I want to talk about reaching out to other struggles. The action plan gives a nod to the immigrant rights struggle, but not any other struggles, which I think we also should reach out to other struggles that are taking place. In particular, you have struggles in support of the Palestinians. And right now, you have protests for Mahmoud Khalil, who those protests are a combination of supporting immigrant rights and supporting the Palestinian people. There's no way to divide the two. And Khalil's from New York City there. There have been a lot of protests there. A couple of days ago, Jewish Voice for Peace occupied the lobby of Trump Tower, over 100 people arrested. And I think other struggles, the Trump administration was painting over the Black Lives Matter mural in front of the White House there in Washington the other day. It's got to be only a matter of time before there's protests breaking out against the racist attacks being carried out by the Trump administration. There's protests now by federal workers who are being laid off. And I think one of the most serious threats made by the Trump administration is the threats against Panama. Yesterday, it was reported that the Trump administration asked the Pentagon to draw up plans to invade Panama, which they did in 1989. They have a military base right there in the capital of Panama, which they used for that invasion. And Panama Canal is a big deal, a big economic deal, and I think that's a serious threat. And hopefully, people in the U.S., there will be at least some protests that we should reach out to. So those are the main things I wanted to, well, going back to the anti-racist struggles, I mentioned the Black Lives Matter mural, which arose after the killing of George Floyd 4 years ago, which there was protests all around the world, nowhere more so than here in Minneapolis, which we tried to reach out to those. We held some programs, why there are no George Floyds in Cuba, and I won't claim that we got tremendous success in those efforts, but we made the effort, and it was the right thing to do. I guess I'll let it go there.
Thank you, Joe. Who else is online? Frank Brown. Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, greeting. Frank Brown of Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition. I think that with the show being on Broadway, Buenos Vista Social Club, I think that that's an opportunity to win more support by giving out information about what's going on in Cuba. And also, I heard that in Charlotte, they had a Cuba Day for the first time. I think when these events happen, we should try to have a presence. So I just wanted to come with those two ideas to see and it might be participating in any of that or willing to do so, and just keep me informed.
Okay, thank you so much. We going back to live.
Friedman, then we come online.
Oh, Mark Friedman.
Hello, everybody. Mark from the Los Angeles Hands Off Cuba Committee. I think there are a couple of important points that John made, one being combining the medical aid campaign with our political campaigns. When we undertook the massive campaign to load a truck, to ship it to Jacksonville, and of medical aid from not just tourists, and then raise the money for the analgesics, which Bob referred to yesterday, we saw that as an opportunity to build new committees along the way, which we successfully did in San Antonio, Texas. They had a meeting of 50 people, the first meeting, and then on in New Orleans. And this is how we will reach new young people in both of these meetings, overwhelmingly under 35. It is also how we will reach out and bring in Cuban Americans, as Pete referred to. The San Antonio committee, a new committee, is led by a Cuban American woman and includes 6 Afghanistan and Iraqi war veterans who have gone through experiences similar to what Carlos Lasso went through. The involvement of Uriel Ramirez and other Elam doctors, which he is focusing on to activate them in the US around the medical aid campaign, is something that we can use in many different cities. Because if we don't do the necessary outreach, Joe pointed to it, Pete and others have, we will be minimalized in terms of what we can do for Cuba. And that's where our focus on Cuba, united front, simple, few demands, we will bring in the most amount of people. This has proven successful in cities that have done it. around the DNC in Chicago and bringing in people like Joe from SEIU or Mike Vera that people heard about. I believe that there are people like Mike and Joe in every city where we have folks doing active Cuba anti-blockade work. These fights that I think we will have over the next period will be defensive fights around free speech, against deportations, strikes, protests, things like that. And that's exactly where the example of Cuba must be brought to, with simple flyers on women in Cuba, on workers in Cuba versus workers in the US. A week ago, there was a march, a women's march of 35,000 here in LA. We had 8 people from our committee with a banner and table, and one new support from Cuban Americans who were at the march, Palestinians who are now going with us on our labor and youth activist delegation. The other point is that our delegations are not junkets. Our delegations are for people who want to learn more about Cuba and come back and be active. And that's the conversation we have with every single person who wants to go on our delegation. Lastly, the work that folks have done around the country on labor resolutions and building relations with Cuban labor is the direction that we need to go. The California State Resolution and others that we've gotten open the door to going to union meetings. Resolutions, as Mike Vera pointed out yesterday, will not do anything by themselves, but open a door for us to go to the ranks of the labor movement, to get them involved, and to come with us to Cuba. We need to get out of our homes, get from behind our computers, and be there with the young people. Even though we are older, we are the elders that must bring young people into the new movement. And the LA Hands Off Cuba Committee is willing to share these flyers that we distribute by the thousands at demonstrations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So we're coming back online. Thank you to our online participants. I know more of you have your hands up, but we are coming back to the room here, as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to start here with Nesbitt. Come on up, Nesbitt.
Nesbitt Crutchfield, National Coordinating Committee of the Venceremos Brigade, and a member of the coalition and the Miami Coalition to support the end of the blockade against Cuba. In looking at the action plans, one of the things that stood out to me as missing is some outreach to 2 very important communities. One being the African American community, and the other being the indigenous community. I think it is vitally important for us to start dealing more specifically with outreach and dealing more specifically with outreach among the African community. There's just not enough of us here. There's not enough of us active, and I think that that's a community that must be educated, must be organized, and must be outreached to so that we can bring this issue directly into that community, and also to the indigenous community. You know, Brother Leonard Peltier was just released, which is a wonderful thing. But there are many of our sisters, brothers, and siblings among the indigenous communities that need to be touched and talked to and communicated with. The National Network on Cuba Mayday community and the Venceremos Brigade has an action where we're going to be doing outreach into the indigenous communities. And I think that in general, that's the emphasis we should take. Just to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nesbitt. I've got Summer. Come on up.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Summer. Beyond being an organizer with the Venceremos Brigade, I'm one of the founders of the multinational Communist Party, and I'm going to be talking about our strategy of what needs to be done. The theme of this conference is to how do we end the blockade on Cuba? How do we end the blockade on Venezuela? How do we help Palestine? How do we help all climate change? All of these things. And the only way this is going to happen is if we set up democratic steering committees inside workplaces. It is the only way. Thank you to our Venezuelan sisters for talking about the advancement of the democracy in their country as the community is voting on how to use government money inside their communities. This is what people learn when they set up labor unions. This is what people learn when through socialism. This is what they learn by going to Cuba. But we need to stay rooted in North America so as that we can stop the empire from within. Because it is not going to happen with conferences like this are very glamorous. Going on brigades, I've been on 4, they're very glamorous. What is not glamorous is talking to your coworkers and doing political education amongst your coworkers who maybe did not go to university, who do not know this vocabulary, who do not know world history, do not know what the Cold War was, do not know what that is, right? It is very difficult, it is unglamorous, and it is slow. So it doesn't give us this sense of gratification or this sense of, oh, I did something outstanding. Going to Cuba is outstanding. My mind is blown every time. We could all relate. But we need to be rooted here to do what needs to be done. I think point 7 on this talks about how we need to participate in uniting the Cuban workers' movement with the workers' movement here in the United States. We need more workers' movement. We need more unions. We need, as communists, to go and to build unions, to build steering committees inside workplaces, and to do political education within there. Street protests, like brigades, like conferences, are glamorous. Very glamorous and very exhausting. They have their place, but we need to get more rooted into the groundwork of what needs to be done here. I look forward to continuing the conversation, and to this, I'm addressing the young people in the room. Thank you to the elders who have bared the torch and given it to us. Thank you. But it is time for us to step into our future, right? We need to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jill? And then I have one more hand here. Anyone else on in the room? Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jill Clark-Golub with Americas Without Sanctions, which is now a project of the Sanctions Kill campaign. And also, Americas Without Sanctions was created a couple of years ago. It's an initiative that came out of Friends of Latin America, whom probably several of you know as for its deep-rooted defense of Cuba and also of Nicaragua and Venezuela. And also, so I want to talk a little bit about unity, which I think is really needed at this moment, and helping interpret this political moment for a lot of people who are out in the streets in this chaotic moment that Trump has created. And so one of the things that we do with Americans Without Sanctions is some lobbying, but we don't do traditional lobbying. We make sure that our struggle is very visible. But there is a piece of legislation that's about to come out that we think helps unite our struggles. Representative Greg Casar is promoting a migration stability bill that should be dropped within the next few weeks. He had a resolution on this effect last year, but it talks about how failed US policies are forcing displacement in Latin America and the Caribbean. And this is a great framework with which to unite the struggles of defense of immigrants with our fight against sanctions. And to also, and another great framework under which to do this work is the new US-NATO Out of the Americas network, which is launched under the Zone of Peace and originally convened by the Black Alliance for Peace. This is, for those who don't know, this is a mechanism to bring social movements throughout the Americas into providing the grassroots approach to the Zone of Peace that Fidel declared in 2014 in CELAC. And so I encourage those who can to attend an orientation session for the US-NATO Out of the Americas network on Saturday, but it has 6 core demands, and 2 of them specifically relate to Cuba. Well, it's basically about closing bases, fighting against Southcom, and ending unilateral coercive measures, which are sanctions, which are war, and also ending colonialism, which means returning Guantanamo to Cuba and returning Puerto Rico, allowing Puerto Rico to have independence. So, and we also, this was a topic of discussion at the Latin America Solidarity Coalition convened by Code Pink, and at the monthly meeting 2 days ago, we talked about working within this framework and building towards a mass mobilization in the coming months. And we can do this by having sign-ons to push out this legislation when it comes out. There's also going to be another resolution to end the Monroe Doctrine. We can point out the urgency of doing this with the Pentagon being instructed to make plans to intervene militarily in Panama. And so we'll do sign-ons, petition campaigns, and webinars. There's going to be, the Black Alliance for Peace is going to have a webinar next month about African migrants in the US, which also helps us connect the dots. So please stay in touch. Please look for US-NATO Out of the Americas Network or Zone of Peace. You can find that by Googling. And also Sanctions Kill, Americas Without Sanctions. And I hope within an hour or so to have some materials to share in person, or look for me if you want to engage with those efforts. Thanks.
Thank you, Jill.
Okay, I've got here at the front, and then here at the front, and then we'll, okay, and here, and then we'll go back online. So we've got 4 more people live in the building. Please come on up. A reminder, introduce yourself and where you're from, and then make your comment.
Hello, I'm Cassandra Lopez from the Western Mass Communist Party and the CPUSA, and also the Smith College Young Communist League. So there have been a lot of calls for incorporating the youth into the movement, and I think one thing that is absolutely essential is just like spreading awareness. This is not an issue that is widely discussed in youth spaces, and something about like transferring like the leadership positions from the older generations to the younger generations is that doesn't necessarily mean that we should be breaking from the tactics and strategies that the older generations have used. We require a lot of well, young people are very passionate. They're very like, they're go-getters. They're like, we want to be out in the streets. We want to be doing this, and this all at once. And that, of course, leads to burnout and disconnected strategies. And what the older generation needs to be providing for the young people is leadership and just general political education that can lead us into more strategic and effective organizing that does not lead to burnout or petty squabbles, such things. And again, to the point of unity, this is absolutely necessary but it needs to be on the basis of a strong political program. It cannot be on the basis of vibes. It has to be principled militant struggle based on the class struggle, as the CPUSA says. And this, we can absolutely incorporate this through political education, through cultural production, but at the end of the day, this is a political class struggle. And yeah, and this is something that the youth need to learn so that we do not get burnt out or veered towards different strange sectarian paths. Yeah, just political education for the young people so that we know what to do in with the future and so that we are not reinventing the wheel here.
Come on up.
Hi, so my name is Luke Rotello. I am co-chair of the Western Mass Club of the CPUSA. I really am here to speak to two main matters. First of all, I see Marianne Sara has her hand raised, so I don't want to like totally, steal her thunder here. But we've been working on a lot with, absolutely. We are working with the Mass Peace Action on the sort of what I see as sort of a production of a social base for solidarity that really incorporates and emphasizes cultural production as a means of building political education, as a means of sort of pairing, it basically bringing the cultural struggle and political struggles together. They are really inseparable. And I think with that, we're sort of starting to identify in our local work a sort of path for a struggle for position, really bringing the sort of social base that we build through cultural events, plays, shows, movies, and taking the politics that we build there to our local environments, to our city councils, to our state legislatures, to advance these inseparable forms of struggle. Then as really the second matter, which I think is the meat that I want to get to, is the matter of politics raised by our comrade from the PC of Brazil. We are really in this country facing a crisis of political economy. We are facing a fascist advance, and that has sort of pervaded this entire conversation. We have to really confront it directly. We have to confront it on political terms. Of course, politics is everywhere. Anytime you have two people in a room, that's politics as it is. But I think, really cannot afford to lose more than anything the struggle in Congress, the struggle in our state legislatures and our local, municipal forms of government. We cannot afford to forget lobbying and the struggle for position that lies there. We have to keep the pressure on, and we really have to especially stop the Force Act. That is like the crux of this. And really, I guess, to kind of append a third point here that's closely related, there's the matter of unity that has sort of, again, come up through the course of this conversation. And I would really challenge people to think, by what means? Because our programmatic ends are not our programmatic means. We can, point to the lofty goals that we have, but what does it actually mean to get there? Unity is a process of construction. It is built through political work. So we have to recognize that political struggle for Cuba is inseparable from the political struggle against MAGA fascism. So let's think in terms of a plan of work there. And that is what I would challenge folks in this room to think about bringing back to their communities.
Thank you.
So I've received a message that Miriam and Sarah, who's joining us on Zoom, is in Havana now, and due to the power outages that we know are happening, she is on limited access to Zoom. So we're going to bring in Miriam on Zoom, and then we'll be going to the other people in the room here.
Thank you. Being in Havana, I hate to jump the cola, but be that as it may. What I want to say, I think is quite simple, which is, I think this is really an excellent draft plan. We can tweak it, and particularly we can apply it wherever we are in the ways that make most sense. And I also want to welcome and greet my comrades from Western Mass and say I'll be back with you in May, and we'll be working together in person. But I want to single out the first 4 points that are made and say that in in Massachusetts, I think what we're thinking about is how we combine these. Because I think what we're thinking about is that this is a moment to try to build our base. as it was leading up to 2014. But we have more limited resources. So we need to build state by state. And we've been doing that in Massachusetts by passing resolutions, by interesting the state legislature, which took a delegation by creating humanitarian assistance. But let me just go point by point. Number one, mobilize and organize and reach out to and make partnership with the Cuban Americans who live.
We'll just give it a moment and see if it reconnects. Sorry, Miriam, it seems we've dropped connection with you. We're just gonna give a second and see if it comes back. Okay. All right, we're going to go back to our speakers here in the room then, and we'll hope that Miriam can maybe sign out and reconnect, because that looks very frozen. Okay. She has oh, she sent you a message. Okay. So unfortunately, that is again, the reality, unfortunately, right now in Cuba is there's been another failure in the power grid, and this is a really big challenge because of the blockade on Cuba and because of fuel shortages that have been happening there. And so Cuba's in a very challenging situation this week, and again, put some urgency on the work that we're doing here this weekend. Okay, I've got Julie next.
All right. So my name's Julie. I'm from the Chicago Cuba Coalition, and I want to just talk a little bit about labor outreach, because I think this is an important area, and we've learned some stuff over the last couple of years in Chicago. And I think that the way I would sum it is that you got to kind of like do consistent follow-up. You got to do consistent kind of like outreach and kind of go to where workers are at. And specifically in the last couple of years, and you guys have kind of like, I'm sure, have been made aware of it in terms of the increased number of labor that's going out on strike. 500,000 went out on strike in 2023 alone. So, you know, that's where we started, going to the picket lines, talking to rank and file leaders who are trying to figure out solidarity. That's where they're at. And it's, keep in mind, kind of like this is decades of setbacks within labor. I mean, I don't know how many concession contracts I signed in my life, you know, like two tiers weren't enough. Let me sign another. You know what I mean? That's the contracts that we were faced with, and there wasn't enough fighting leadership, or the rank and file weren't mobilized at the time to take it on. But now you see a little bit of a change, and I got to say, at these picket lines with these rank and file workers, the conversation has been very, very rich, and they're thinking about solidarity. I mean, I don't know if. Some of you probably participated in the labor panel. Joe is is a good example of this, and he's a union official. He's a secretary treasurer of SEIU 73, 35,000 membership in the public sector. But Joe, who went to Cuba last year on a labor delegation, talks about relating to working people of Cuba. He's not a communist, and he'll tell you that in the first couple minutes talking to him. I'm not a communist, but I see that Cuba, they got like free healthcare, and we don't have that here. And, you know, you have access to higher education, and it's not something that's, you know, a right or accessible to all in this country. 1 minute, okay, great. But anyway, so I think that the important thing is actually kind of getting out there, talking to people, and kind of connecting in terms of building international labor solidarity, which in my mind is a very important big step with labor at this particular time. And to just sum up in terms of like the you know, how it's kind of resolved or what it looks like is we have at least 5 people, 3 from SEIU 70, no, 2 or 3 from SEIU 73, and 3 from the UAW Ford plant, 5,000 people manufacturing, who are going to be going on a labor delegation in this year. So I'm extremely excited about it because I think we're going to have the opportunity to keep on talking, develop those relations, build that collaboration, and then on the return, continue to figure out how do you take the next step in terms of building those relations with Cuban labor.
Thank you.
All right, here in the Malcolm X hat. You had your hand up? No? All right, I got you next. Anybody else? Okay. Then we'll head back online.
Well, this guy in the Malcolm X hat. How are you doing? It's Brother Omar Wally from December 12th Movement. First, let me say in unity, I don't think the things we do is, what would say, this is glamorous or not glamorous. I think it's all the necessary work. And we know the work we're doing, and we know the shortcomings, and we know that. So for December 12th, I had a chance to go to Cuba this past December for the African descendants. We had a chance to take some of our young people there. We had a chance to take supplies there. And all of these things have meaning and contribute to the survival of Cuba, because the survival of Cuba is very important to the development and consistency of a revolutionary international political line, and that's critical. I was there in 1990 for a conference, because as we speak now, this is the centennial of Malcolm X. So also the centennial of Frantz Fanon and the centennial of Patrice Lumumba. So this is a revolutionary time right here. But in terms of in 1990, there was a conference in Cuba called Malcolm X into the 90s that was hosted by the Cuban government and Assata Shakur. And it was the first time she became public that she was there. So let me just raise the concrete relationship between Cuba and the Black liberation movement is one built in history. I'm always concerned about the lack of Black participation in many of these rallies and mass movements I see going on. There's a lot of work to be done, because nothing is going to be done without the participation of Black people in it. So I just want to make that very clear. I'm very proud of our relationship to the Cuban Revolution because of our political prisoners, because of medicine, because of all of the myriad of things that they've done that we have to make sure that we support so it continues to keep on being done. So I'll just simply say, straight ahead to Cuba, we will never give you up because you'll never give us up. Straight ahead. And of course, when you talk, you often forget things. So in February 21st, commemorating the assassination of Malcolm X and who he was, we had a press conference and a rally in Harlem, where we got to start doing more of our stuff in the South Bronx, in Harlem, in the Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy, do or die. We got to start doing that. But in Harlem, to commemorate the solidarity between Malcolm X and Fidel Castro when they met at the Teresa Hotel. So we got to continue to build those things straight in.
Thank you. Well, I'll take this opportunity to thank the December 12th movement, in particular, Brother Omawali, of course, and last night, the wonderful rally we had at the Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz Center was pointed to the truth of what was said, that the struggle in this, especially in this centenary year, to build that kind of unity is so important. I want to thank the December 12th movement for their crucial role in Cuba solidarity over many, many years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just adding to some of the revolutionaries and the centenaries, we're going to be starting the centenary from Fidel's birth, August 13th of 2025 will be 99 years since the birth of Fidel Castro, and Cuba's going to be celebrating probably for 2 years, from the 99th birthday to the 100th, and from the 100th to the 101st. So that's a date that we can also keep in mind for our solidarity work is Fidel Castro's birthday. All right, I had right here in the beautiful frog sweater. Come on down.
Hey y'all, it's Jada. My pronouns are they, them. I'm with the Venceremos Brigade, but I live in St. Louis, also with the St. Louis Anti-Imperialist Collective and the St. Louis Palestinian Solidarity Committee. One thing that I would like to bring up, we've been talking a lot about like cross-movement connections, but I'm also thinking about like cross-state connections. So a lot of like in the past couple of years, there have been like tours by like Liz Olivia Fernandez with like Belly of the Beast that like really centered on the coast, like with the East Coast and also on the West Coast. Same for like Helen Yaffe's like climate change documentary. And so like I have more of a request for like folks in the space to like not forget about those of us in the Midwest who like also are building out Cuba solidarity movements in real time. Like I was able to bring like 6 other people from St. Louis with me on our last like Venceremos Brigade in a place that did not have anybody. So it's like, and all of those folks that I brought with me were like Black queer organizers in St. Louis. So we have like a strong movement there of like folks who are like hungry to be connected to other movements outside of ourselves and what we've been working on in St. Louis. And I know folks in the Midwest also feel the same way. So if there's a way that we can like consolidate resources so that when we are bringing in Cuban diplomats to do tours for like different areas, that we find a way to connect back to organizations in the Midwest and in the South who are also struggling and also building our own movements, because we have a lot less resources than folks on the coast. So if we could not be forgotten about when we bring those people, that really helps when it comes to like public facing events for Cuba, because oftentimes like we are working alone in our areas. So it would be really nice to have that like extra layer of support to be able to bring those people here so that they can also see what our areas look like, because the US doesn't just look like here in New York, and it doesn't just look like Seattle or LA, like St. Louis, Chicago, Atlanta, like all of these places, like really speak to like the diversity that we're experiencing and also the diversity of our movements and what we're working in, like especially in places like St. Louis, where it is like we are a predominantly Black city and we do a lot of work when it comes to abolition. And sometimes like those folks are missing from spaces like these because like there isn't that connection, even though we understand that like an abolitionist movement is an anti-imperialist movement, is an anti-capitalist movement. Like we're calling for the end of US imperialism because we understand that all of that connects to policing and prisons here, and also about how the US moves weapons and war abroad. So kind of connecting those two things is really important, especially for those of us here in the Midwest. So if y'all could like connect with us.
That was a very important point, and I think so glad to have you here. And look, people are descending on you now to give you information. So ask and ye shall receive. So I think was there anyone else on this side that had their hand up? Okay, so I've seen a hand over here. Do you want to come on down? Was that your in the blue shirt? Yeah.
Another Midwesterner. Hi, my name's Aaron. I organize with the Mayday Brigade. I'm one of the main organizers of the Mayday Brigade. I also organize with Michigan Action for Cuba Coalition, and my cadre organization is General Defense Committee in Detroit. Comrade Noemi gave us kind of 3 points to organize on for Cuba. One is through agitation and propaganda to defend the Cuban Revolution and the gains, and also to go after the smears and misinformation on Cuba. 2 was to bring material aid, food production and agricultural production, medical supplies, and help with the solar grid. Those are those things. And then the third is to travel to Cuba, to see Cuba for ourselves, and to help the economy by spending money in Cuba. Cuba has the ability to survive, we know that, if given the opportunity, right? And so us in the Corps here have to help with given the opportunity. So some of the things that we do, the nuts and bolts of the things that we do in the Midwest, in Michigan specifically, is we have created, we have bins for medical supplies in multiple locations in Michigan, mostly Arab coffee shops connected with the Palestinian struggle, churches, bookstores throughout Michigan. This gives a low bar for people to start organizing around Cuba and be consistent with it. So they got to go pick up the bins, et cetera, et cetera. It brings them into the periphery of organizing. We do cultural and political events in places outside of the usual places. So we concentrate on areas of Black neighborhoods, Southwest Detroit, which is Mexican Hispanic organizing. We connect with our elders, Comrade Baba Charles Simmons, who folks might know, who is our rock in our foundation, Comrade Cheryl, who is also our rock in our foundation. We use the energy of the youth to build this out. We, on the 16th Brigade, there were 3 people from Michigan. This year we were bringing 23 people and could have brought more, but we didn't want to show everybody up.
Go ahead.
All those people will come back and be organizers because we are making them organizers before they go. We will build out. We are going to bring people from the Upper Peninsula. We have expanded through there. We are now going to fill a cargo thing with Bob Schwartz, and I think we can do that because we built out the infrastructure to be able to do that. On the ground work, organizing, political, the 3 things that Comrade Naomi mentioned is the way forward for us. Thank you.
So, so we had kind of divided our discussion today, one moment, into a few agenda points, and we've kind of just opened the floor and it's been great. So I just want to kind of bring ourselves back to kind of the points that we were hoping to discuss. We do have a few people who are joining us online and in person who wanted to talk about these topics specifically. So we've kind of opened with a general discussion. We also had Pete talk a bit about involving Cuban Americans specifically. We've had some discussion about travel. We want to go back to that theme as well. We also have a few people who are hoping to speak about local groups and material aid as another topic, advocacy and resolutions as another topic, as well as international links. So I've got, okay, I don't have legal on here as a topic, but I will add it. All right. So I do want to just kind of bring us back to thinking about those kind of larger themes as well as we go and go into the advocacy and resolutions briefly. But I did have one more hand in the room before we went into that. Who am I missing? Have they gone? Okay. Maybe they have stepped out. Okay. All right. So maybe we'll move to the advocacy and resolution section. I have on the people who had asked about speaking were Claire Bleckman, Gary Provost, Rita Baruch, and Cindy Roberts. Cindy, are you here in the room? Okay. Are you interested in talking now and kind of kicking off that section? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to bring up Cindy and then check in to see if Claire, Gary, and Rita are available online. All right, welcome to the stage, Cindy.
Cindy Roberts from Indiana, where we have a sister city with Santa Clara, Cuba, but also here more on behalf of U.S. Women in Cuba and Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, the Cuba and Bolivarian Alliance. And in that regard, we are planning, we have no date yet, but in the fall to have a mobilization advocacy day in DC where we go and speak with our representatives to bring them around to what they need to recognize about Cuba. It's going to be women-centric and focus on women issues, but all you feminist men, any men, are more than welcome to join us. So that's, you know, in a nutshell, what we're looking at. So keep that in mind, and we will be getting you more information when we formalize and have a date. Thank you.
Okay, so I've been told that Miriam and Sarah is back online in Havana, so we're going to bring up Miriam again. Yes, yeah. Mary, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Mary, are you there? It's looking like she's stepped away from her computer. I was given false information that she was waiting. Okay. All right. So, no, she's on the phone. Okay. All right. We do have Rachel Barr who wanted to speak as well. I'm just asked that she keep it brief, and we'll come back to Mary when she's available.
I'm unmuting.
Can you all hear me?
Oh, you
Can you
wonderful
hear me?
people.
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Did you just ask me to unmute?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Tamara. Good afternoon, everyone. So I won't be 5 minutes. I would like to say that it is very, very important for all the people who are there in person and all of us online and anyone who does any work with Cuba to use proper legal verbiage. The very first time I went to Cuba, which was, I'd say 30 years ago now, I was taught by the head of the English department at Radio Havana, Cuba, who was the guide, that the proper term to use in the States is illegal blockade, because the blockade is considered illegal and it is considered by Cuba to be an act of war on Cuba. So I just want to throw out that information. It's very important when you're working with people, whether it's about Cuba or Palestine or anything, because everything is connected to each other if you're an anti-imperialist. That's the bottom line of this, not only webinar, but every webinar that we're having. So I would really appreciate it if people, whenever they give speaking or give out literature, online or in hand, to use the proper verbiage, illegal blockade. The second point I want to make to everyone, no matter where you come from, which state you come from, or even if you come from Cuba, when you are giving out literature, putting it online, however you're communicating in print or online, if we want to include, as many people have said when they're talking here, that this struggle not only includes Cuba, but it includes everyone wherever they live that supports Cuba. Things have to be in English and in Spanish, because part of what the so-called president of the United States wants to do is get rid of DEI. And so to fight back, every group that does work needs to do it in English and in Spanish, because that's how we fight back his getting rid of DEI. And that's how you include everybody, because don't assume that everyone knows English, don't assume that everyone knows Spanish. I'm very happy that the conference yesterday and today is being translated. However, we need to, if you want more people to get involved, you must do it in English and in Spanish. And the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'll shut up, I promise, is that there were 2 demonstrations yesterday. They were both about getting Mohammed Khalil released from prison. They subsequently arrested a second student from Colombia. And this is their new game. So it is of the utmost importance, not only for people, whatever group you belong to involve Palestine and every other country that the United States has been crapping on since we know it, because that's the only way we are going to win. And I can't stress that enough. I'm a Jewish person, I support Palestine, and I have found during talking with people at demonstrations for Palestine that they want to know why. They want to know why Cuba is not listed as one of the issues. So I don't know if I've gone beyond my time, but thank you for your time, and free them all.
Mary, back to Mary. There you go. Hi.
Oh my God. Well, there's nothing like a blackout. But what I wanted to say is that I think this is a great draft plan. I really like it. And my idea in Massachusetts, anyway, I can't speak for any place else, is to bring together those first 4 points into a single campaign. Over the last decades, we have built a huge base in Massachusetts.
Can you send her a WhatsApp and just ask her to try just with video, just with audio, not video? Thank you, Bob. Bob Schwartz in WhatsApp contact with Mary. Okay, we'll give it a moment. Okay, sounds good. Okay. Thank you so much, Bob and Mary, for facilitating. So this is a message from Mary to the conference. I got back and frozen again. Here is what I was going to say. We need a campaign. Ooh, she's calling. Let's try. Mary, can you hear me? Yes. This is Tamara. I'm on Bob's phone. I'm going to see if I can raise the volume and put you up to the microphone.
If not, basically I've said the essence, which is
you're live with the conference now. They can hear you. Let's go.
Oh, thank you, everybody, and thank you for bearing with this. It could be worse. You could be here trying to cope with it. Anyway, basically what I'm saying is that we have built an enormous base in Massachusetts, and I'm sure in many, many other states. And at this moment, we need to activate that base, give voice to that base, and use it to reach out to other people. A humanitarian campaign is something that can do that because there's basic agreement on such a thing. And what we need is agreement about re-engagement with Cuba, right? And I cannot tell you how many people I know, no matter what their politics, they do agree with that, and they do agree on helping the Cuban people. So we can build a far-reaching humanitarian base. We have churches, we have synagogues, we have universities, the Arboretum, environmental groups, trade unions, elected officials at all levels, Cuban Americans. And we can build that and try to keep present, visible, and give a united voice to our state of Massachusetts on re-engagement with Cuba. And while that isn't ending the embargo, it is creating something. And so that's all I want to say.
Thank you so much. We heard that loud and clear. The Massachusetts people are extra loud for you. Okay, just checking in on Zoom if we have Gary or Rita who are ready to join in the conversation on resolutions. All right, I'm going to invite up John Waller again. Okay. Okay, Claire is online? Okay. Claire, oh, we've got Gary first. Let's go to Gary and then Claire, you're on deck. All right, welcome to the microphone, Gary.
Okay, I trust that you can hear me.
Yes.
Coming in from South Africa where I work. This is actually, Claire, I guess will be in the middle, but this is actually a formal report from the local resolution subcommittee of NNOC regarding the question of resolutions for 2025, a strategy that we have worked out. I'll be outlining briefly the strategy, and Rita, after Claire, will speak to those cities that have already passed the resolution and how to use the resolution that's been passed. We began this work for resolutions at the NNOC meeting in Minneapolis 8 years ago in 2017, created a task force. That task force has now been very active for the last 5 years, basically meeting every 3 weeks with a set of activists from around the country who are very much focused on getting formal city council and county government and now labor resolutions passed. We've succeeded. By 2023, we had 31 cities, large and small, including, as most of you know, some of our largest cities, New York, Chicago, Washington, Boston, that passed resolutions as part of their Cuba solidarity work. In 2023 and 24, at the leadership of the now late Bill Camp, we made a turn toward labor resolutions out of a belief that I think ultimately may have been true of pressure on specifically Joe Biden to take Cuba off the SSOT. This is now 2025. We're in a different situation. We have a Republican president and Republican control. And what we've decided is we need to widen the number of cities that have passed resolutions by going to cities that there are committees active that we are working with on getting resolutions. We're currently working with people in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area for a resolution at the St. Petersburg City Council. We are working with people in Cincinnati, Ohio for a resolution there. We continue to work with people in Cook County, Illinois, where there was a resolution introduced in 2024, and we hope will be reintroduced in 2025. Working closely, and Claire can speak to this, from the Democratic Socialists of America, America's Committee, where we're also working closely with some places where they have people who are keen to do this kind of work, in some cases, members of city councils. I'll just mention a couple of the cities: Providence, Rhode Island, the Triangle in North Carolina, Atlanta, and a city that Mark Friedman mentioned, San Antonio. Those are our targets. If we could get any 3 or 4 or 5 of those cities in 2025, we would consider that to be a major victory. So that's our strategy. I'd like to now add St. Louis. Like to connect with the representative from St. Louis. We were unaware that there was a committee there. That's another city where there's no reason politically that a resolution couldn't pass a totally Democratic controlled city council. So this is the work we're doing, and we'll continue to grind away at it. And anyone who's here at the meeting from any of the cities that I mentioned, please reach out and be in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Is Rita coming on next? Oh. Huh? Okay, Claire Blechman.
Yeah.
You're on. You.
Hey, everybody. I'm Claire Bleckman. I am the co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA's Cuba Solidarity Working Group, along with Comrade Denny Valdez, who you guys saw yesterday. We do a lot of activities for Cuba. We're sending a delegation this fall, resolution work that were just mentioned, but I was specifically asked to come here and talk about our legislative campaign that we are just launching. Last fall, we did a campaign to pressure Biden to remove Cuba from the SSOT. We sent 2,000 letters to Congress. We lobbied Biden, we lobbied our reps. We provided detailed instructions on how to hold constituent meetings, talking points for both Democrats and Republicans. And that campaign was ultimately pretty effective, thanks to help from everybody around the country. Biden did issue the executive order. It would have removed Cuba from the list, but of course, you know that Trump reversed it immediately. And so now we're on the defensive. And I'm here to say that we do want to prevent the worst of what's coming out of this administration, namely Maria Salazar's HR 450 Force Act that John mentioned earlier. So now we are launching a similar campaign, legislative campaign, pressure campaign called Diplomacy Not Force. We have action network letters to email to your Congress critter. We have an updated toolkit for constituent visits, talking points again for both Democrats and Republicans. I have link to go to all of these things. We have dsaic.org/4Cuba. I'll put that in the chat. Again, dsaic as an international committee.org/4Cuba. So we've got our letter there to tell our representatives diplomacy, not force. Stuff for the March meeting as well. We have a link to the toolkit, which we've made. It's, again, got great talking points. It's got a soup to nuts how-to for people to lobby their Congress people. And we are targeting members of the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee and the Foreign Affairs Committee. We are hoping to prevent the Force Act from getting out of committee, to let it wither on the vine, rather than, we think that's our best bet, rather than having to wait and react to it when it's already on the floor. But more importantly, I want to point out that we are using this Force Act campaign as a basis for building a Cuba bloc in Congress. We want to know that there is a core constituency of electeds that we can mobilize to vote in Cuba's favor against harmful legislation. We know the Force Act probably won't be the last terrible thing that comes up from this administration. And so to this end, we also have a Congress tracking doc, which I can't share my screen to show you, but we are tracking all 435 members of the House and what their position on Cuba is. We're going to work on the Senate too when that comes up. So we would love your help. If you know your reps and their position on Cuba, then please put it in the chat. Let me know. You can also join us for our monthly meetings. We meet at the final Sunday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern. Link to sign up for that is on the campaign page. Again, it's dsaic.org/4Cuba. And I want to say thank you, everybody. Legislative action is, of course, only one of the cool things that we've been talking about today. It is like a ground floor level of what needs to be done, but I do think it's a place where we can exert a lot of power. And we have to defeat the Force Act. We got to work on it quickly, keep it from even being an issue. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. There is a link in the Zoom chat to the website. And for those of you who didn't get a chance to write it down, just let me know and we'll get it to you. All right, we're going to welcome to the floor Rita Baruch.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you. I want to follow those really important comments by Claire and Gary. I speak to you with a call for unity in action. I firmly believe that while we need to do everything that's being discussed, that everybody needs to be laser focused on defeating this HR 450, and the resolutions are an important part of doing that. So I want to say that we, having listened, the last 2 days, it's clear we are all here because we love Cuba and we all want to defend their literacy, universal health care, international medical brigades, etc. To do that, to defend their right to self-determination, it means that at this time, in these social conditions, we all need to engage and organize our people to participate in this advocacy campaign and work. Whether or not it is an aspect of political activity that you prefer. It is a call to action. It is a call from our Cuban colleagues and leaders. They have made very, very clear that this is top priority. The SSOT cannot be codified. It would be horrible. I was there in December, co-leading a delegation from Richmond, California, and I don't want to hear the doctors wringing their hands because they cannot provide the medical care that they know is necessary. This has to change. We have currently 117 resolutions, documented evidence of widespread support from all over the country, municipalities, labor unions, who support lifting the SSOT and the embargo, the illegal embargo. Together, these resolutions speak loudly and they speak volumes, but they are only going to be the tool, the ammunition that we need when we bring them forward and we give them voice. So I want to ask everybody, this is, bear with me here, everybody who's in the room and everybody online, raise your hand if you are represented by at least one of the resolutions that's on the list, the 117 that you all received. If you're represented or if you helped to pass a resolution, I can't see your hands, but please.
We've got at least 10 hands here.
Thank you, Tamara. Help me, Tamara, because I really want to do it this way. I'm a popular educator, and this is important. Every one of us, if you are not represented, I think many more of you are represented by a resolution, and you may not be aware of it. This 3-page resolutions list, I hope you all have a copy. It's phenomenal. I'll be honest with you. We passed the first resolution right here in my town of Richmond, California, in Bay Area. I never imagined that it would grow to this national scope. And I really want to acknowledge it was Alicia Ropko who called and said, we need to do this. Will you help me pass a resolution? And as you know, you don't say no to Alicia, right? A presente. So here we are, 8 years later. We have to use these resolutions to pressure our representatives to oppose HR. Sorry, I lost my place. I wrote these comments because I really want to be clear. You can tell I feel really strongly about this. By any means necessary, as Malcolm X taught us. Well, I'm going to say that by any means necessary includes all of us doing at this time advocacy. You don't have to call it advocacy. You can call it organizing, propaganda work, but we have got to make contact with people who can stop this bill in the committee, the House committee that it is currently in, because it will be much harder.
Brita, you're about, time's up, but you.
Okay, let me just finish this. I want everybody to think about how you can bring those resolutions to your work and, bring them to tabling, bring them sign letters from colleagues. Find everything you do, think about how you can bring the resolutions forward. And I'm just making one final plea. Ask everyone to engage with the DSA materials and the ACERE fact list and contact congressional reps to demand that they stop this in its tracks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. Thank you, Gary, Claire, and Rita for updating us on these important struggles ahead. Now, we're going to, I think, move over a little bit to the legal front where there's a lot of possibilities. And we have Sister Steffi. I know I'm going to mispronounce your last name, so I'll let you introduce yourself and one of the great legal fighters in Cuba City. Thank you, Steffi.
Okay, I had to write something because if I freestyle, I wouldn't shut up about this topic. This is a big one for me. So, and I don't want to get in trouble. So, as many of you, oh, my name's Steffi Bastianez. I'll spell it later. I'll come up to you and spell it. It's got every letter of the alphabet in it. I'm an immigration lawyer.
And a Cuba C activist.
And a Cuba C activist. As many of you know, the Helms-Burton Act is unconstitutional, and for many reasons. And there's currently a movement of young lawyers studying the various ways the Act is totally unconstitutional. And we're working on beginning the foundations of a repeal Helms-Burton Act campaign. Maybe an unknown fact, the Act actually codifies the illegal blockade into law, making it more difficult for a future president to lift or alter the blockade. Yes, the Act expands the scope of the blockade, but it also sets onerous conditions for any potential normalization of relations with Cuba. So actually, the Act prevents any foreseeable future president from unilaterally ending or modifying the blockade on Cuba unless a bunch of ridiculous specific conditions are met. No matter what, we still need to get over the obstacle of the Helms-Burton Act. It is crucial that we consider the inextricable link of the evil trinity. That's what I call it. That's not what it is, but it's what I call it. The illegal blockade policy, the SSOT list itself, and the Helms-Burton Act as a law. They all work together with an aim to make Cuba a failed state. If anyone is interested in working with New York lawyers and legal professionals to shine a light on Helms-Burton, study its unconstitutionality, educate law students about its unconstitutionality, and start a repeal Helms-Burton Act campaign within the legal community, just find me and let me know, and we can work together on that.
Thank you so much. This initiative of Steffi and other young and middle-aged other lawyers fighting on this front came out of a meeting where Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez from Cuba came to the mission and brought together a bunch of lawyers and legal activists, National Lawyers Guild, and gave a brilliant talk, which I think we've published, about the unconstitutionality of Helms-Burton.
We've got someone online.
And who is that? Somebody online? Christy, online. Thank you.
David, are we able to bring up Christy online? Thank you so much. All right, Christy, if you're able to unmute yourself, and you've got 3 minutes.
My hand was up only to vote previously, and I forgot to take the hand down.
Well, wonderful. We're glad that the resolutions have impacted you. Thank you so much. Okay. So I have right now, that was kind of our presentation on resolutions and advocacy work. So I think some really important organizing that's happening, especially out of the National Network on Cuba, out of ACERE, and also out of the DSA International Committee, as well as this exciting new lawyers initiative. So lots of things that folks can plug into, and that we really encourage folks to get involved in that work. So we're gonna go, we don't have anyone who wanted to kick off discussion on travel, but if there's anyone here who wants to talk travel, we've talked a little bit about the play and some other things. I wanted to kind of put that topic out there. Is there anyone online? Anyone want to come in? We'll go to material aid in a moment. I got to connect with Brenda online and make sure that she's here. Anyone want to talk about the Mayday Brigade or any other upcoming travel opportunities? All right. We did it all yesterday. All right, sounds good. Oh, I've got a hand here. Come on down.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael. I'm with Massachusetts Peace Action and the National Network on Cuba Mayday Brigade Coordinating Committee. Just want to say two quick things, along with brigades being an incredible opportunity to travel to Cuba and have the opportunity to learn directly from Cubans about what their experience is. There's also trying to get folks to just go to Cuba for any reason at any time, and trying to get those folks just the information that they need about where to stay, what the restrictions are, how to get your visa. Mary, who spoke earlier, Mary's put together a PowerPoint that can be kind of easily circulated at libraries, at colleges, at really any place under the sun that you're looking to get the information about just how can I get down to Cuba, I want to go. So that will be made available to folks, and just reach out to the NNOC or anybody else that is just looking to get that information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've got Nancy Amata online, and while we're bringing her up, I'll also just personally say that I work with the coordinating committee of the Calixto Garcia Brigade, which is, we've got two volunteer work brigades in Canada that go to Cuba annually. And the Calixto Garcia Brigade is always based in Eastern Cuba. We travel to Holguin, is kind of the home city of the Calixto Garcia Brigade, and we travel around Eastern Cuba. And connecting to what our brother Nesbitt brought up earlier, this December, when the Calixto Garcia Brigade goes to Cuba, we're going to be having a focus on connecting to the indigenous cultures of Cuba.
Mayor Joey.
And so we're going to be visiting some historical sites linked to the arrival of Columbus in Cuba, but also the research that's being done by Cubans to look into the archaeological history of the indigenous people of that region of Cuba. And so we're really looking forward to that brigade. We're on Facebook, but the brigade is mostly done by word of mouth. So if you're interested in learning more and traveling with some folks from Canada to Cuba, I would love to give you more information about the Calixto Garcia Brigade. All right, I've got Fanny here, and then we'll go to Nancy online. Come on down, Fanny.
Hello, everybody. My name is Fanny Guzman. My gender pronouns are she, they, them, and I am from occupied Tongava and Shumish land, otherwise known as Boyle Heights in California. And I'm a coordinator with the Venceremos Brigade. And so I wanted to share that we're having mini brigades this year, and we're collaborating with the NNOC for the Mayday Brigade. So you guys have that information, but we're also gonna have two other mini brigades. The one in July will be from July 21st to the 31st. And this will be, specifically for the groups of LGBTQIA. It'll be multi-generational as always. And we're also gonna have another one in December, and that'll be December 26th through January the 4th. And this one will specifically focus on African, Indigenous, and Palestinians Brigade. So if you're interested, please follow us at BB4Cuba. We will be posting as soon as we have more information of when the application is going to drop. Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're going to go online to Nancy. Oh, and then we'll come over to you. Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, everybody. Nancy Yamada from Building Relations with Cuban Labor. And as I said, most of the travel was travel to Cuba, and the brigades from Mayday, et cetera, were covered yesterday. So I don't want to go over those too much, but in detail. But we are still accepting applications, as well as LA Hands Off Cuba also has a couple of spots available. I don't know what the NNOC status is, but any way you can get somebody to Cuba, the NSOC's page has links to other brigades, not only for May Day, but for other delegations. And if you want to turn people into activists, the way is to go bring them to Cuba, let them see for themselves. Joe Reichert, who's a big advocate and mover and shaker on all things Cuba now, he came with us last year. He's relatively new, but excited and energetic. And this is how we can build more activists. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, come. I can bring you the mic if, well.
All right, I'll go on.
This way everybody sees you.
All right, this is, okay. The travel is so important. Everyone said why. I'm just really wondering how we can really keep the word among us. Like, is there a spreadsheet? Is there a, where people can then say, I have 4 spots left. We're trying to get this many people to this, for this brigade, something which is current that we in different locations can turn to see what the upcoming travel opportunities are. If there is such a thing, then I don't know about it. I know that the NNOC website has some of the brigades, but I learned about a lot more at this conference. So, and communications is one of the things we all do. So if we could improve our communications mechanism, I don't know if anyone would be willing to at least start such a kind of list and figure out how to make it available to people in all the different localities. Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent and often repeated suggestion. Hopefully we'll do that at some point and soon. Who's next?
Okay, so I'm just kind of going back to our little outline that we presented. We had Pete Seidman address issues around Cuban Americans. A few people have responded to that. That was on travel. And we also wanted to talk about the topic of building local groups and material aid, which it was touched on a bit by Mark Freeman and also by Aaron earlier, which was great. We want to talk about engaging with other struggles and street actions, which we, I think, can kind of go into now. We've already talked about, we just kind of had our main speakers on advocacy and resolution. So maybe thinking about issues around planning for international days of action or coordinated efforts, thinking about social media and media campaigns, how can we connect together? Part of what is in the resolution or the action plan is was presented on yesterday by Solimar from the Puerto Rican Cuba Solidarity Movement. They are engaging right now with their Latin American and Caribbean continental organization in what they're calling the Maratón Mundial de Amor para Cuba, or the World Marathon of Love for Cuba. And this is an initiative that I wanted to make sure that everyone is clear about, that is set to take place basically from December 2024 to December 2025, which will coincide with the anniversary of ICAP, the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples, which I believe is on December. Okay, el 4 de enero. Okay, so from the end of December to January 4th will be the celebrating 65 years of the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples, and that will be the wrap up of this World Marathon of Love for Cuba. And this project is really an open invitation by the Latin American and Caribbean Network that basically anything you do this year for Cuba can be counted as part of the marathons. So for example, in Vancouver, we're having monthly car caravans for Cuba, where we demand an end to the blockade, and we're now doing those in solidarity with the Maratón Mundial de Amor para Cuba. And so any action that you are organizing, whether it's in the streets or a webinar or a forum, you can basically send them an email, you know, put their logo on your work and call it part of this marathon. And that's really what they're hoping, is to bring more unity in our work internationally in this year as we gear up to celebrate 65 years of the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples. So it is mentioned in the action plan, and there is more information available if you want to reach out to Solimar from the Puerto Rican group. But basically, it's, again, a very open invitation for you to take that logo and run with it and share with the Latin American and Caribbean Solidarity Network what you're doing for Cuba this year. So that's, I think, an exciting project. Okay, I've got Ike here, and then I've got, all right, Steve here, and then I've got Alison. Anyone else who'd like to be added to the speakers list? And then I've got Leima, ooh, special guest. Okay, so I'll bring Ike to the mic.
Okay, I'm actually not, giving a formal presentation other than to say, if we're having this discussion on street actions and public visibility, that we keep in mind that we are also going to react to what is happening in the struggle. A confrontation, developments in the hemisphere, resistance to the blockade is developing. And we also going to give, I would love to see us revive. I love that Vancouver has a continuity, but public actions. I mean, even though it seems far away, we should all be thinking about the next vote at the UN. We're going to be coming back from a lot of brigades in the next period that we've talked about that have traveled to Cuba. Come back and organize public actions is very important. We've been talking a lot about unity, and that's the greatest thing, to do that here. But the key for what we have also besides the unity is based on having a united front. And the basis of that united front is that we are Cuba-centered in our demands, but at the same time, we reach out as broadly as possible to every force in struggle and try to bring that. That could seem like a contradiction, but that's what we're doing, and that's the reality we have.
All right. Steve, come on down. Good to see you. We haven't even said hi yet. It's been busy.
Steve Eckhart, Chicago Cuba Coalition. I just wanted to briefly let people know that in Chicago, in addition to our work with labor, the SEIU, the UAW, also the Chicago Teachers Union, we've also been doing some work that reach out to farmers. Julie and I were able to attend the national meeting of the Family Farm Defenders. We were invited to it. We were able to talk to them about Cuba. We've also been meeting with Paul Johnson from the Cuba Agricultural Coalition. This is a pretty broad group that includes some agribusiness interests that are quite interested in trading with Cuba and actually do some trade. So we're in the process of trying to put together kind of a working group around agriculture in Cuba. So if anyone's interested in that, talk to Julie or myself. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Steve. All right, I've got Alison.
Hey, everybody. Can we get a Viva Cuba? Cuba, sí! Cuba, sí! We're like halfway through our discussion, so it's time. We got to do some chanting. It's really good to see you all today to help have a discussion about our actions and next steps. I really appreciate all the suggestions and kind of leading towards some concrete, coordinated actions going forward from the conference. But I wanted to also just, and my name's Alison, Alison Bodine. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, with Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice and Friends of Cuba Against the US Blockade in Vancouver. Okay. Yeah, and US-Cuba normalization. So I wanted to address something I think is also important, which I know a lot of us are tackling and deal with, which is we know about the importance of having actions in the streets, about having visible actions when we are outside standing with Cuba, whether it's participating in in another demonstration or struggle, as we'll talk about today, or whether it is having actions dedicated to Cuba. We know that we need to be out talking to people, not only working in an online space, not only sending social media posts, but we are here as organizers and people that want to engage with working people about Cuba and why Cuba is so important. And one way that we think it's really important to do from Vancouver is through having materials like petition campaigns and postcards. So I wanted to kind of just announce and show people the Hey, President Trump, Cuba's not a state sponsor of terrorism, remove Cuba from your list postcard campaign, which is a change from the Hey Biden postcard campaign that some of us have been coordinating on, because of course the policies have continued through both administrations minus 3 days or however long that was. So I think that it's very important that we continue to coordinate on these sort of campaigns. These are postcards that you can approach people with, have them sign something, talk to them about the state sponsors of terrorism list, and then send it directly to the White House with just a stamp. So this campaign was originally launched at maybe 2 conferences ago, I think, or last year? No, 2 conferences ago, I think so. And a bunch of organizations have signed onto it, and we'll continue to hopefully promote this postcard campaign. So we have copies of it, and we're very happy to give copies to people that want to take this to have at their tables, and are also going to be launching a petition to go with this, an online and then printed petition that we can have on our tables and our materials to, again, engage with people about the state sponsors of terrorism list and the necessity to remove it, and start that conversation when we're having our street actions and events. As was mentioned earlier, many cities across Canada, including Vancouver, have continued with the car caravans against the US blockade on Cuba. Those car caravans are also part, something concrete, Tamara, that we've done that we can mention is even the logo of the World Marathon of Solidarity with Cuba is something that if you'd like to affiliate your action with this coordinated set of actions, you can put that logo on your poster, let people know that this is not just one city, this is part of a coordinated campaign, and we've done that with our car caravans in Vancouver, and I encourage other people to do that as well, of course, in coordination with our brothers and sisters in the Latin American network. But, and just continue with our street actions and with talking to people about Cuba and its importance as we do our work, building towards actions where we can talk to people in the streets, I think is really important. And the more coordinated we can be across the US and Canada through international days of action or certain pressure campaigns of standouts coordinated with car caravans, whatever works in your community, I think we can have a more powerful impact. That is what I wanted to add today. And again, yes, I have postcards, so come talk to me. I'll put some on the table at the back also. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, I got Mark. Mark's coming up first.
Mark, Kubasi, New York, New Jersey. And of course, I should have written this down because I'm a very nervous speaker, but whatever. One thing that hasn't been mentioned that has been, I think, in New York, one of our most effective ways of reaching new people are organizing meetings on campuses. We haven't done it in the high schools. We have done it at a number of college campuses, and we find a great deal of interest. And there's a lot of friendly teachers who want us to come into their classrooms We've done it somewhat. We haven't taken full advantage of it, which, speaks to this whole thing of the older generation, many who have died off now. And where are the young people going to come from? The other point I want to make is about street actions. I think everybody here is in agreement of the importance of street actions. But I've heard of there's street actions that the Cuba Committee itself, at least here in New York, that we've organized on occasion. And then there are the massive thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of young people have come out on the streets, particularly around Palestine, but other issues too. Gay Pride Parade, Earth Day, New York, every week there's something huge in New York, and I'm sure that's true of other major cities. I think going to those street actions are where it's at and where we're going to meet people. I've been pretty active over the past year and a half at these Palestine demonstrations. We've had some flyers we've given out from Cuba C talking about Cuba's position, and they've always been extremely well received. Likewise, we've done that, as I said, at a Gay Pride Parade a couple of years ago at Earth Day. People are so happy to see us there. And that is where we've gotten our new names, and that's where we've gotten the run into teachers at those demonstrations who've said, can you come to my college class? The actions that Cuba C has organized in its own name have tended to be very small, I think. And I think narrow in the sense that we're a coalition, so it's a broad coalition, but it tends to be a broad coalition of the left, broad coalition of people who are already committed to Cuba. And we want to go well beyond that. So I just want to put more of an emphasis on us going to the massive street actions. And what do I got, like 30 seconds? Mahmoud Khalil is front and center in US politics right now. It's on the front page of newspapers, radio stations, massive demonstrations. It's a question of free speech. And I'm wondering if even our conference should consider, I know this is controversial, should consider going on record in one of these petitions, which have been signed by several million people, in support of Rashid Khalil, not in support of Palestine independence, which I am, but the free speech side of it.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sorry, I've got Diana next, and then we've got
You want to?
Gustavo Rojas online.
Oh, Gustavo, okay. Diane?
And then, yes. Yeah. I think we'll once we've got these three, then we'll talk about kind of some of the proposals that have been made, and we want to go to Leima as well. We've got kind of 2 or 3 more people that want to say something, and then we'll come to those discussions.
Hi, Diana Block, she, her, Bay Area, Cuba Solidarity Network, and the Venceremos Brigade, and I really appreciated the comments made right before me. That was sort of what I wanted to speak to. I don't think it's just kind of a utilitarian issue of going to other Palestine demonstrations because we can organize there. It's the unity of our struggles. It's the unity that Cuba has made so clear time and time again. Palestine, Gaza, it is the leading anti-imperialist struggle of the moment. I think we should support it. We should be in solidarity. I think we should sign our names to the petition for Mahmoud Khalil for all the reasons. And I think this is really important when we're talking about being out and visible. In the Bay Area, we have brought and worked with people from PYM and other organizations around Palestine, around our Cuba solidarity actions and events. And that has been very effective. And so I just want to support everyone thinking about how in your local environment, what that means. Nationally, I think we should do the support as was proposed and seconded, but I also think it's a question of people trying to figure out what that solidarity and the interconnections mean at this point in time, and how to use it to really build a much more internationalist, in all senses of the word, movement. So thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Oh, yes. Okay, like to bring on a brother from Colombia, Gustavo Rojas from the Cuba Solidarity Committee in Colombia. Gustavo, you're muted. Welcome.
Hi, Gustavo. You are muted. Please unmute. Abre el micrófono, por favor.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was.
Hear you. Beautiful.
Well, dear comrades, brothers and sisters of the United States and Canada, the Caribbean, and Latin America, and beyond the seas, brothers and sisters united on this wonderful celebration and the Malcolm X 100th anniversary, which we all celebrate worldwide. I just want to say, to express your thing, a thought I've had for a long time, since we have been on the solidarity movement quite a few decades, that it is in the best interest of the US people, their government, to stop the genocidal 63-year-old war on Cuba, not only an economic war, but a multinational front war and the Cuban family. And for that reason, we in Colombia, at the top west of South America, are very solidarious with the Cuban family and the people suffering there, because that blockade is an unnecessary war. It's a genocidal war that must be stopped. It's been a war that's been condemned by all governments, except two, which actually are only one, the US and Israel. And it's such a criminal war that is something that history must change. It's not something that should go on, affecting all the new generations as if it were something normal and something we would have to accept. No, the US government has no rights to impose any sanctions, blockades, or genocides on the people of Cuba or the people of Israel, or the people of Palestine. No, the war has to for us to survive in times of uncertainty and horror, but also we are gratified to witness this impressive meeting.
Gustavo, compañero, 1 minuto más, por favor.
Yeah. Okay, so we're so impressed to see this wonderful meeting in New York City. And we hope that all these witnesses, these testimonies that are so dear to us would make us united into a global force, a global solidarity movement that will be particularly effective in stopping the war on Cuba. Cuba sí. Bloqueo no. Cuba libre ya. Viva Cuba. Viva el pueblo de Estados Unidos. Viva Latinoamérica y viva el mundo libre. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Gustavo.
Gracias.
We're going to come back when we come back to, I think, just voting on and amending the plan of action where we can take up the proposal. But we want to finish with our, go ahead, you can introduce our final speakers.
Okay, so thank you so much to Gustavo Rojas. Wonderful to have representation from Colombia with us today. So in terms of kind of discussing our process here, the plan will be now that we'll go to the compañera Leima for her final thoughts. Then we'll come back to the proposal about having the conference support the petition for Mohammed Khalil. And then we'll go back to the final document. There's been a few changes proposed to the action plan, and so John's going to present what he heard as the kind of proposed changes, and then we'll be going to basically move forward with that final action plan. So we do want to wrap up by 3 o'clock, and so we're going to try and keep ourselves on schedule with those discussions. So I'm very honored to welcome to the stage our wonderful compañera Leima Martinez from the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples. Okay, pase a Alison or... Okay. One moment, we just have a few things that she'd like to bring up on screen. Okay, all right, we're working on that.
Oh, sorry. There are too many lights here. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to meet so many friends. Every time I come to the microphone, I say the same thing because I feel very embraced by all these initiatives. All of you are speaking about more tasks for you. So that is impressive how you are thinking of working more and more in solidarity with Cuba and the many complications that are inside the United States and around the world. We have limited time, and most of the issues that we have been speaking here and in Cuba has been raised because, well, these are your initiatives that we are welcoming all. We are getting ready, as you know, to welcome all those projects that you have been mentioning. All those groups and brigades are going to be welcomed by our staff in Havana and in Villa Clara, in Santi Espiritus. So our team is ready to welcome you, no matter the situation that you are reading these days of the general blackouts. People in Cuba, like Mariam and Sarah, we have blackouts, but people keep working and organizing to welcome you all, okay? So don't worry about that. We should look for other initiatives to develop our country, to move on with the changes in the matrix of electricity, electrical plants. We need more medications, but meanwhile, people are really working. So welcome you all. In the case of the marathon, we invite you to look for the call that you have also printed, and you have more information here and in the web pages of the organizations here. In the case of the Mexico initiative, the Continental and the Caribbean Solidarity Movement is going to organize in Mexico City in October their annual solidarity meeting with Cuba, and they have expanded their call to all those friends that want to participate in a specific meeting that will take place on October the 30th. They are going to have their continental meeting from 9th to 12th, and what the Mexican friends and the Cuban delegation is inviting all friends in the United States and in Canada is to join us in Mexico City. We don't know if we are going to be able to return to the States. We don't know how the travel bans are going to be at the end of the year. So let us meet in Mexico City. On the 12th, they are going to do public activities that everybody is invited. On the 13th, we are going to have a place ready to welcome our friends from US and Canada and to have a meeting with ICAP there. So you are all welcome. We will be sending information through the networks of the NNOC, the CNC in Canada, and La Table de Concertation in Quebec, the three networks that are working with the Continental Meeting. There is an issue that we have been very worried about, and it is the how our medical staff and the medical brigades and the countries that are receiving medical collaboration has been harassed in the last years, and with more intensification in the last days, with the Secretary of State announcing measures against those governments. We need you to raise the voice the same way you did it during the first attempts of harassment. The movement, you came out with the idea of nominating our brigade for the Nobel Peace Prize. We should think about another initiative to really prove what, there is an easy way to prove what our doctors are doing because they are saving the lives of our friends in those countries. So we need to highlight that in each of the actions you are doing in your educational work. We are going to be celebrating also the 100th anniversary of important figures. It has been mentioned here, Malcolm X, Frank Fanon, Patrice Lumumba, and of course, this is the starting point to continue with the 100th birthday of Fidel. So we know that these brigades this year and next year are going to be dedicated to them. So, and something that we usually talked about, and it is how to organize the many information that we produced. That is a challenge for us too, because I have to, some of you know that at the office, at the North America department, we are only 3 people, but we'll multiply the same way you multiply here. And we are receiving the support of some young comrades because we are young, but they're in need of younger ideas. And they are helping us to group part of the information that you are producing. In the case of Cuba Amistad, this link tree that I will leave here, it is to describe or list the many networks that we are working with in Canada and in the United States. So you can find your information or the information of others, and if you are not there, please contact us to add you here. In the case of Siempre con Cuba, it is the webpage of ICAP, where we post usually the information of the solidarity movement all around the world, so it is important to do those interconnections. In the case of Cuba donations, it is the link where we have placed the initiative, the Global Health Partners, the medical support from LA Hands of Cuba, and the initiative of the students, A2A project, the sutures from Bill Ryan in Canada. So we are listing here the many initiatives because sometimes people do not have the tools to start a new project, but to support the ones that are still that are working and that have licenses, it is important to do it. And the 2 final links are related to trips to Cuba. One, it is from the travel agency of ICAP, where they explain the different programs that they can organize, not only for brigades, but for union leaders, for professionals at healthcare, educational trips, lawyers, and other types of professionals that would like to go to Cuba. And the last one, it is, can you open the last one? Thank you, Alison. It's Brian that's helping, but yes. Who? Brian, please. So the last one, we are going to update it every year. It is the most important event, at least from our ICAP opinion. The most important events that friends from US and Canada have been interested in participating. The Jazz Festival, the Havana Cigar Festival, the different brigades, and the connections we have with the National Center for Sexual Education and the specific programs they have for May Day, the parade against homophobia and transphobia. And we are also including the information of the brigades that you have been mentioning. But we are missing two, that we are also trying to promote new projects of brigade. That is the case of the Law Brigade that will take place in August, organized by our dear friend Sarina. And for this year, but very much, if we cannot do it this year, we will organize it next year, that it is the Love Brigade. And in this Love Brigade, we are inviting the LGBT communities in the United States and in Canada to join us after May Day Brigade, because we are going to be celebrating with our friends at CNSX the rallies in Cuba against homophobia and transphobia. So we will be organizing together with you the different brigades that are here and the new ones to come. So thank you, and I'm sure that we all have a lot of work. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for accompanying us every time, and thank you for the organizers of the conference. This is the annual gathering of all friends from United States and Canada, but also from other parts of the world that are identifying this as the hub of also solidarity and to guide us during the year in solidarity. Thank you, Ike. Thank you, my dear comrades.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Leima, but I've gotten a few questions about Cuba's electrical grid and how the solidarity movement, if there's anything the solidarity movement can do to support the specific challenges in Cuba's electrical grid as far as aid. But, yeah, thank you.
Well, so a few updates that we have received from the situation. Different municipalities in Havana have already electricity. Yesterday at night and today early in the morning, around 5 municipalities in Havana had electricity. In the case of the rest of the country, in the central area, in Santi Espíritus, Villa Clara, they're also recovering. And Noemi is updating us that the system is already aligned, so that will provide electricity rapidly to the other communities that were in blackouts. Yes, but there was a question of updating what the situation was, and now I will go to that. So, but thank you. I know you have my back. In the case of how the solidarity movement can support us, I have to use Fernando, the president of ICAP, words that it's always teaching us about how to see the movement in a broader way. The first step, it is to, and it is included in one of the links, it is to know what are the specific needs in Cuba. There are needs of generators, there are needs of solar panels, there are needs of other supplies, rechargeable, and in the specific case of the thermoelectric plants, it is more difficult because that requires huge amount of money to do the maintenance, and that is being worked out through international collaboration or the bilateral relationship that Cuba has with other friendly countries. In the case of the solidarity movement, Fernando has been teaching us that it is important to focus on specific centers. There are friends that are helping in changing the matrix at the Latin American School of Medicine. So to provide that school with a possibility to produce the energy that they need. The same we are doing with the headquarters of ICAP, and we are planning to do it with the international camp. CJAM, as you know it. And there are other specific places in our country, hospitals that need those changes of matrix, schools that need changes of matrix. So we cannot cover the whole needs, but if we focus on one specific center, the support of all of you can change the matrix of a school, of a hospital, and we can support you in identifying a place that we all collectively can support.
Muchas gracias. Another round of applause for Leima. Thank you so much to ICAP for being here with us. It's always an honor to have them, participating in our discussions. Okay, so we are currently at 2:20. That gives us about 40 minutes where we're trying to summarize some important conversations. So the first thing I would like to go to is the proposal, which was seconded, that this conference support and endorse the petition demanding an immediate release of Palestinian student activist Mahmoud Khalil. This is a petition that is being signed by over 3.4 million people worldwide. And I think that we all know that this is an urgent campaign. Yes, it is not a campaign specifically related to Cuba, but I think that we understand that this attack on Mahmoud Khalil as an activist is something that will come to the Cuba Solidarity Movement, as it is right now impacting those who are working against the genocide in Gaza. And this is something where we have to prepare our fight back. We have to prepare for keeping spaces open for us and our progressive and revolutionary views. And I think that it is, as one of the chairpersons, I'm speaking in favor of us passing a resolution, voting in favor of the conference signing on to this petition. So it's already been made and seconded, and I'm hoping we're not going to have too much discussion and that we can just kind of vote on it as a whole, but I am going to open the floor for discussion.
I think the struggle to increase democratic space in this period and expand democratic, our ability to organize is extremely important. And around that axis, I think that I certainly, we should support and promote the petition and put it on our website and so on. And formally, I have no problem with formally doing it. It does, as Tamara said, it's not specifically Cuba-centered, but around the axis of the struggle for democratic rights. That's very important. The question, the broader question, which has come up, and we really haven't debated it at length, and maybe in the time we have left, is in general.
Let's talk on the specific vote. Let's do our vote.
Okay, so then I'm in favor of that. So.
Okay, we've asked, somebody has asked to call the question. We do have 2 people with their hands up online. Okay, so I'm going to go to those folks who are online. Again, I am not interested in this extending into a larger debate. Please speak in favor of or opposing the resolution that this conference sign on to the petition demanding the immediate release of Palestinian student activist Mahmoud Khalil. Okay, we've got Pete.
Can people hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm totally in favor of this. If Trump can take any person who disagrees with U.S. government policy, label them a terrorist, and then revoke their legal status, we're dealing with a fight against the blockade of Cuba, which the U.S. government designates as a state sponsor of terrorism. And that puts people in our movement, activists who travel to Cuba, Cubans in our movement, some of whom have different kinds of legal status in this country, right in the crosshairs of a similar kind of move. So I think that just as we have joined, I don't know if the national level, but in our coalition, in defense of Uhuru 3 or other groups that whose democratic rights are being trampled on, this is a clear case where we should throw ourselves wholeheartedly.
Thanks, Pete. Okay, we'll take one more. We've got Howard, and then we'll call the vote. Go ahead, Howard.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much from Chicago to Ike, Cesar, and everybody else who organized this conference. Levantate por Cuba was founded in July last year in support of all peoples, all organizations, all nations fighting for liberation against oppression. We are in favor of this motion, and we think that this grouping of people going forward has to formally endorse and become part of coalitions like this. This is an act of fascism, and it's not a coincidence. This is based on what Marco Rubio wrote incorrectly as the justification the same week that he went after every medical mission that Cuba has done and will do in the future. So we vote in favor. Thank you.
We're going to call the question here. So those of you who are online, Alison will be noting your in favors, and will be also here in the room. So all those in favor of the motion. I'm not counting because that looks like a majority. Okay, any opposing? Okay, anybody? Okay. Okay, lower your hands online. Those who have voted in favor. Those who are online, anyone who would like to oppose? Okay. Yes. All right. It is unanimous. All right. Thank you, everybody. So excellent, and we will be publishing the petition as well on our website. And again, encourage folks, if you are not one of the 3.4 million who have signed the petition, please get on that. So I'm going to welcome back John Waller, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the additions or suggestions that were made about the final action plan, and then we'll go to finalize that as well.
Okay, this has been one of the best conference discussions I've ever attended. I should come to more. Because you focused on practical realities. There's been an awful lot of consensus, some differences of emphasis. We're interested in different aspects of Cuba solidarity, but very little disagreement. It's wonderful. I'm going to update the action plan in the next couple of days with some minor additions. It won't be much longer. A couple of things from yesterday. The relaunch of the Saving Lives campaign needs to be in there. Secondly, Sam Anderson's point about working with black media.
The Saving Lives campaign is, in case people don't know.
Okay, the Saving Lives campaign, which is a campaign to send medical aid to Cuba, but also link it to political campaigning against, in the past, the SSOT, now the Force Act. That's the Saving Lives campaign. The email invites will go out next week. So the point that Sam Anderson made yesterday about working with black media, where we have a sympathetic audience amongst black journalists. Some points that have come up today. Nesbitt's point about outreach to African American and Indigenous communities will get in there. There's been a number of points, details about the advocacy work around the Force Act that will get in there. The US Women in Cuba Solidarity Initiative, as yet no date, but sometime in the fall, advocacy work in DC will get in there. What else? Point points that Leima raised, the importance of in our political work, emphasizing, defending Cuba's medical international campaign. This is an important way in which we can stress all of Cuba's achievements that are under attack. So that will get in there. And then we already have the October conference in Mexico City, but we'll expand it a little to make clear that there's going to be some kind of session, still to be arranged in detail, where US and Canadian activists are invited. So that will get in there. And of course, the resolution you've just passed will get in there. I think that's it, without kind of trying to add more.
Something about cultural work, that as well as political work, we want to encourage cultural work as a contribution and as a way of expressing our solidarity, inviting Cuban artists, US artists doing performances in benefit, that sort of.
Can you just repeat that for the online folks?
Can you repeat it?
Oh, she needs to say it into the microphone.
Cultural work.
Okay.
We also.
They can't hear you.
Yeah.
You
We
could-
also encourage cultural work.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Susan is saying that we need to say something briefly about encouraging, supporting cultural work as part of our political work, and that where, if we can, bring Cuban artists, performers to the US.
Benefits by US artists in benefit of the struggle with.
Yeah, and benefits by US artists, which we can also add in there about the hothouse performances that are coming up in early April. Yeah, so we'll get that in there, Susan, as well. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm done.
One more hand from Jill.
Yeah.
Should I say it at the mic?
Yeah.
Can you also include under the international solidarity what we talked about, what I talked about with Americas Without Sanctions, which I understand this group has endorsed that campaign, as has the National Network on Cuba, and working on cross-Latin America solidarity and bringing in the struggle for migrant rights as well, because sanctions drive migration, essentially.
Can you email me?
Yeah.
Just waiting.
Yes.
Okay.
Howard. Sure. It's all on Howard. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I want to thank John for kind of summarizing some of the points that we'll be adding to the action plan as we go. Again, you know, this is not a law or a decree. This is an open invitation. We see this document as something that you can take to your local groups and discuss and see where, again, you feel that your group can plug into this action plan. And so we are, I think we have a very robust plan here, and that there's a lot of different places for folks to integrate themselves and to continue supporting each other in the work that we've been doing. I do have Howard who has a hand up online, and then I'm hoping that we can basically vote in favor of the action plan. If there's any other voices who want to add, please let me know. Howard.
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you, John, for that summary. We had proposed very late in the game on Friday that specifically we need a broader, deeper strategic approach to ELAM and the U.S. scholarship program with IFCO. We had a meeting of about 85 people online a month ago, and we put this in a brief session into the proposed outcome for this meeting. What that means is literally organizing city by city, in particular where there are ELAM grads and there's enough capacity by NNOC members to really make ELAM a year-round event, not just to recruit students, but to do what happened in 2017 when 3 Cuban doctors and a nurse came to Chicago on the only medical mission in history since the revolution from Cuba to the US. So if something like that could be put in, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. I think that's friendly, and we'll add a point about finding ways to further promote the work of ELAM in our Cuba Solidarity work and connecting to the work that IFCO is already doing. Perfect. All right, Diane.
I also think that we need to get a lot more PR out as much as we can, wherever we can, about all the wonderful things that Cuba does that they get no recognition. The press only reports the negative, it only reports the problems, it only reports things that we know aren't mostly true. So I think anything we can do in terms of getting the word out in the press, your local press, I write letters to the editor all the time. Somebody this week wrote that Marco Rubio left Cuba because of political reasons. Marco Rubio wasn't even born in Cuba. You know, there's nonsense in the press. So make sure if you see anything like that, you write letters, you know, in opposing what they've said, and try to get as much positive out as you can.
Just to say, Diane, the media section, I can easily add in the point you made about local media, where there are opportunities that we don't always take advantage of.
Yes, perfect. All right, okay, I've got one more.
Hi, I forgot to introduce myself before. Jason Corley, Cuba Sea Coalition, New York, New Jersey. Regarding media, one thing that hasn't been mentioned as explicitly up until now is the following. At our actions, particularly the larger ones, but even some of the smaller ones, press releases, you know, reaching out to the press, mainstream press. You never know who shows up. It's not the reporters that show up, it's the editor that you know, censors. So whether it's mainstream press, black press, independent press, make sure you know, to let press know about our actions. And regarding that previous point, regarding you know, letting people know the positives about Cuba. Almost every day, every other day at least, Google has an article on Cuba. And I think I've noticed 3 positive things they mentioned over the last year. Much of it is negative, much of it is gross exaggerations, some of it is absolute lies, but it's there every other day for people to read. So definitely countering some of that is important, which is why, again, we want, you know, press as much as we can at our larger and smaller rallies and events. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Media, boy, it's always hard, but we've made some progress. Yes.
We would just like to bring attention to points 9 and points 10, and to really emphasize the necessity of lobbying regarding the Helms-Burton legislation as well. I mean, we have these joint efforts here by the Democratic Socialists of America, National Network on Cuba, and others to mobilize congressional opposition to HR 450, the Force Act. And then at the same time, we were talking about a campaign by the National Lawyers Guild with them as leadership to point out the unconstitutionality of the Helms-Burton legislation. It would be really good to bring these, to sort of start to bring these efforts closer together to make a sort of common, build towards a sort of common program regarding Cuba at the legislative level.
Could I just respond that I mentioned before Ron Wyden's bill in the Senate. It's technical language, but basically it dismantles all the other bills. It removes Helms-Burton. So it has no chance in hell of passing. But it is something that we need to be talking about positively for the future, to be persuading, if they're persuadable, Democrat senators that they should be signing on to this bill.
On the legal thing, John, maybe if you could incorporate, we have that section, the initiative that Sister Steffi talked about in terms of. Okay, excellent.
Okay, does she, Marguerite wants to make the announcement? Okay, so we're going to move into voting now, and then we're gonna invite up Lucy Paguada Quesada, who's going to give a short motivational speech from Honduras, and then we are going to have an announcement from Marguerite Horberg about the upcoming Cuba concerts. Okay, so we have a general outline for the action plan here. We also have some points that have been added by John and are going to be formulated in the coming days. We're just going to have to ask that you're going to trust in John's ability to formulate everything that we've discussed here adding. And so do we have a motion to accept this action plan? Okay, do we have a second? Perfect. Thank you so much. We've had our discussion, so we're going to bring it to a vote. Folks online hopefully are with us as well. All those in favor of this action plan? Yeah, of course the Cubans can vote. You're here at the conference. This is for everyone. Okay. All right, hands down, those of you who are online. All right. Any opposition? Okay. All right. Are we past, Alison, are we passed unanimously? Yes, we are passed. All right, passed unanimously. Thank you. So again, I'm going to invite up now Lucy Paguada Quesada and a solidarity greeting from Honduras. All right.
Gracias. Thank you, compañera Tamara and compañero Ike. Good evening, buenas tardes, compañeros, compañeras from La Patria Grande. Buenas tardes, compañeros y compañeras de La Patria Grande. Thank you for the opportunity to bring in Honduras. Gracias por la oportunidad de hablar sobre Honduras brevemente. Very briefly, I know time is an issue. So I wrote it to be very precise. Lo escribí para ser muy precisa. Perdón. El 28 de junio de 2009, Honduras fue víctima de un fatídico golpe de Estado dirigido por el gobierno de Estados Unidos en contra del presidente Zelaya y el pueblo hondureño. El pueblo se levantó en resistencia y creamos el Partido Libre, brazo político de nuestra resistencia popular. Miles de asesinados y reprimidos, hombres y mujeres mártires. En una de sus reflexiones, en 2009, el comandante Fidel Castro escribió que en Honduras se gesta una revolución, y créanme que eso es una realidad. Durante el golpe de Estado, los golpistas expulsaron a los médicos y maestros cubanos, los persiguieron y los reprimieron. Pero ahora han vuelto con la administración de nuestra presidenta Xiomara Castro de Zelaya, quien siempre ha denunciado el bloqueo criminal contra Cuba, dentro y fuera de Honduras. No hay un espacio público donde nuestra presidenta no denuncie y exija el levantamiento del bloqueo. Mi llamado como ciudadana de América Latina y de la Patria Grande es para que los demás líderes presidentes de nuestra región no tengan miedo y se unan también a presidentas valientes como la presidenta Xiomara y exijan en un bloque de resistencia el levantamiento de este bloqueo criminal e ilegal contra nuestro hermano país, Cuba. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. I'm going to read it in English very briefly. In Honduras, in June 28, 2009, the people were victims of a fateful criminal coup d'etat led by the United States government against President Zelaya and the Honduran people. The people rose up in resistance, and we created the political Party Libre, the political arm of the Honduran resistance. Thousands were murdered and repressed, men and women that today are our martyrs. In one of his reflections in 2009, Comandante Fidel Castro wrote that in Honduras, a revolution is brewing, and believe me, it is so true. It is very true. During the coup plotters expelled the Cuban doctors and the teachers that were there, and they were repressed brutally. But now they have returned with the administration of Presidenta Xiomara, who has always denounced the criminal blockade against Cuba, both in Honduras and outside Honduras. There is not a public platform where our president speaks without denouncing and demanding the criminal blockade against our sister country, Cuba. So my call as a citizen of Latin America, it is that the other governments become courageous and unite in a front with other governments and president leaders like President Xiomara and demand together the end of the criminal blockade against Cuba. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí. Gracias, thank you.
So we'll now invite up online Marguerite Horberg, who's going to announce some exciting upcoming concerts for Cuba.
Thank you so much. I've gotten so much out of the conference, so I really appreciate all the speakers, especially Rosemary's presentation last night was just really fantastic. Anyway, thank you for continuing to reference the project. This is a consortium of Bill Martinez, myself, and Hannah Craig, Priscilla Craig from the People's Forum. And the three of us are the producers of what we call Concerts for Cuba, that first took place on February 16th as live events at the People's Forum in Chicago at Constellation and in San Francisco at the Chapel. And they were all completely sold out. And they were also filmed professionally in each of the three venues. And we've raised money through sponsors, and we're very grateful for that money, which we're able to use to hire professional film editors. And that person, JT Blanco, is creating a 2-hour composite concert, which we are streaming for free live on Saturday, April 5th. And the goal of the projects, both the online and the live events, has been to raise as much money as possible to contribute to the two designated recipients, which are Global Health Partners and the People's Forum. And they were both chosen to be the recipients for their capacity to ship large quantities of material aid. So we have developed outreach toolkits, and my email has been in the chat. It's marguerite.star@gmail.com. And what we're asking for is anybody who has the capacity to forward the materials to their networks so that we can really get as many people to watch. There's 3 platforms. One is Twitch TV. One is Facebook Live, which has an event already up. And also the third one is on YouTube, which will also be archived. So we did a concert for Cuba in 2020 during the pandemic, where we had over 200,000 people watch globally. And it was also seen on Cuban television. And we want to surpass that goal because times are really tough. And so we want everybody just to forward. It's very simple tools. There's emails, there's media alerts, there's graphic things to post. And so, there's 3 weeks between now and then. And so anyone can watch. It's all free. There's no paywall, but there will be QR codes and links during the film. So thank you so much for all your solidarity and support.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, we're getting almost finished. I want to thank everybody. I think it's been I have to echo John, excellent discussion, and it reflects the broadness of our movement and even the different points of view. We have a united front. It's necessarily, people are not going to agree on everything or maybe even a lot or any, but we agree on Cuba. So Thank you again to the People's Forum and the whole staff. There's Brother Wyatt, Manolo, Hannah, thank you. Right? Okay, yes, thank you again. They're always here for us, and we hope to always be here for the struggles that you all are involved in. So thank you to the...
So we're just going to invite everybody who's joining us online. We had over 50 people online this morning with us to turn on your cameras and give us a wave if you'd like, and we'll take a little digital photo of them. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us online this morning. Lovely. We're checking out all your beautiful faces right now here in New York. A big thank you to everybody who helped organize this conference with the US-Cuba Normalization Conference Coalition. Thank you so much to our Cuban delegates for being here with us. Thank you so much to those who helped with translation this weekend, to those who helped with tech, everything. It's been very important work and challenging to keep us up online and everything. So let's give everyone a big thank you. Viva Cuba! Abajo el bloqueo! Tumba el bloqueo! Viva la solidaridad! Long live solidarity. Thank you all so much for being here, and have a great afternoon.
Great. That was good. Good job.
Did we just end 9 minutes early?